I will call upon each counselor by the name that they have indicated they would like to be addressed by, and please let us know that you can hear us and be heard. Counselor Brevik,
Yes.
Counselor Cano Martin,
Present.
Andy Churchill,
Yes.
Anna Devlin Gauthier,
Present.
Lynn Geismer,
Present.
Mandy Jo Hannicky,
Present.
Counselor Lord,
Present.
Sam McLeod,
Present.
Pam Rooney,
Here.
Counselor Ryan,
Present.
Kathy Shane,
I'm here.
Jennifer Taub,
I'm here.
and Counselor Walker is present. Okay, so we are going to move right into the public forum on a supplemental budget appropriation. Anyone who is wishing to make a public comment, please sign up with the clerk of the council, or if you are on Zoom, go ahead and raise your hand. Residents are welcome to make public comments on matters within the jurisdiction of the town council. The council will not engage in a dialogue or comment on a matter raised during general public comment. Public comments are not reflective of the opinions of the town council. The First Amendment broadly protects individuals' rights to address the government, to speak and to express themselves, including their right to say hateful and offensive things. I am generally unable to shut those commenters down under the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution unless their level of speech falls within an exception articulated by the courts, such as fighting words, threats to a particular individual, harassment of a particular individual, or incitement of imminent lawless activity. If a question exists as to whether a particular speaker is engaging in unprotected speech, I must defer to the principle of freedom of speech. Right now, we have 3 attendees on Zoom. I do not see any hand raised on Zoom. Do we have anyone signed up in the town room?
Yes, one. Just make sure it's on.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry, Athena, did you say we did have a public comment in the town room?
Yes, we have one.
Okay. So we will move to our first speaker. Please just make sure that your comments are on the supplemental budget appropriation.
Vince O'Connor?
Hello, please state your name and make your comment.
So at a previous public forum regarding the appropriations, supplemental budget appropriations, I asked the question, which I think it should be fairly easy to answer and should have been answered by this time. What was the budget surplus that was generated as the result of closing the books on the previous year's activities? Usually that happens somewhere from mid-July to mid-August. I don't know if anyone has an answer, but I would like to hear an answer. The second question I have is about the appropriations from free cash. For capital items that, in my opinion, those appropriations for capital items should come from various capital funds so that we can preserve the availability of free cash to use for the school budgets. And I would hope that someone can answer those 2 questions before you go to a vote on the appropriation before you.
Thank you, Vince. Paul, do you have a brief answer to those questions?
Well, I can answer on this appropriation request. So this is the purchase of about 54 acres of land in Pelham on Shrewsbury Road. And the purchase price is $364,700. The town has secured grants from various places, including Mass Audubon, the state. And so out of the 364,700, $55,080 will be appropriate, is requested to be appropriate from the town. The funds for this are being requested to come from the town's water fund, not from the general fund and not from free cash.
Thank you, Paul. And I think, is that Sean that also has a hand up?
Yeah, is it okay? So in the last hearing, the memo did include the breakdown of free cash from last year. So we finished last year with 10.2 million in free cash. And as Paul mentioned, for this project, it's actually coming from retained earnings, of which we had in the water fund, which we had 2.1 million in the water fund in retained earnings. So it's similar to free cash, but it's a different source.
Thank you, Sean. Okay, I do not have any topics that were not reasonably anticipated by the chair within 48 hours of this meeting. And seeing that there are no other hands for public comment, I would like to, do I need a motion to adjourn? I would like to make a motion to adjourn the public forum at 6:38 PM. Do I have a second? Thank you. Counselor Brevik,
Yes.
Counselor Kano Martin,
Yes.
Andy Churchill,
Yes.
Anna Devlin Gauthier,
Aye.
Lynn Geismer,
Aye.
Mandy Jo Hannicky,
Aye.
Counselor Lord,
Aye.
Sam McLeod,
Aye.
Pam Rooney,
Yes.
Counselor Ryan,
Aye.
Kathy Shane,
Yes.
Jennifer Taub,
Yes.
and Counselor Walker is a yes. So the public forum is adjourned.
Thank you, Vice President Walker. If people haven't noticed, I'm trying to let Vice President Walker run all of the public forums this year. And we'll move on to some other things after that. But so we are now moving on to the regular town council meeting agenda. Vice President Walker already did so I'm going to call that to order at 6:39 PM. And we already went through all of it's being recorded and remote meetings and roll calls, so I'm not going to go through that again. Announcements are that March 30th, there will be a special meeting. That agenda will be published this week. It is a special meeting under the charter called by 4 counselors. On April 6th, there will be both a regular meeting and the public forum on the Community Preservation Act items that we will be hopefully referring tonight. And then another regular meeting, April 27th, are the big announcements on meetings. Lynn.
District 2 has a meeting this Wednesday at 6:30 by Zoom, and the link for that is posted on the community calendar.
Thank you. There are no hearings, and so we will move to general public comment. Counselor Walker did a great job in announcing the general public comment statements. So anyone who wishes to make general public comment who's attending remotely, please raise your hand in the Zoom app now. And if you are present in the town room and have not signed up, please do so with the council clerk. I'm not going to go through all of the rest of the stuff other than residents will be able to make their public comments within the jurisdiction of the town council. We have no hands at this point raised for general public comment. Are there anyone signed up in the town room? There is one signed up in the town room, so general public comments can be made for 3 minutes at a time. We will start with the town room since that is at this point the only hand that is raised.
Vince O'Connor.
Vince, can you please come up and state your name and where you live and make your comment?
have two.
Three.
I'm Vincent O'Connor, 175 Summer Street, Apartment 12. I've read the town manager's March 3rd, 2026 executive order in detail and concluded that it is a multi-level sham. First, this so-called executive order does not answer the question of what an Amherst resident can expect as a response if they call 911 to report that unidentified, armed, masked men are, one, attempting to break into their car, seize their U.S. citizen children, or other relatives who have on their person proof of full U.S. citizenship, or two, are attempting to break into their homes or apartment without displaying a warrant signed by a judge or a federal magistrate. In fact, in failing to even address the 911 inquiry question, much less answer it, the so-called executive order constitutes an open invitation to ICE and Border Patrol to commit any crime of their choosing within this community without Amherst Police Department interference. In fact, paragraph 3 under section 2, policy of the manager's executive order, commits the Amherst Police Department to engage in all sorts of activities to protect ICE operatives in their commission of various illegal acts. Such language essentially says, we will not help you rob the bank, but we will help you get away safely. How should we respond? Not by violence, because that's what the federal authorities want us to do, nor by sabotage, unless and until ICE begins to transport detainees by railroad cattle cars. Nor, in fact, both parties, both public schools and the university should begin immediately to operate by Zoom so that white students do not perceive themselves to be privileged with respect to ICE. So finally, what we really should do is work with our neighbors, friends, coworkers, and so forth to identify places where vulnerable individuals can essentially disappear and avoid ICE as long as they're around. Second, I think that one of the things this council should do and address our member of Congress is to insist that the Democratic caucus of the House of Representatives include in its bargaining position a prohibition against providing essentially bounties to federal officials who detain or arrest individuals. This encourages the very offensive behavior that has irritated.
Please wrap
and
up. Your
angered
time is up.
so many Americans. Thank you.
Thank you, Vince, for your comments tonight. There are no other hands raised for public comment, so I will be moving on to the next item in our agenda. We are moving on to the consent agenda. The following items were selected because they were considered to be routine and it was reasonable to expect they would pass with no controversy. To remove an item from the consent agenda for later discussion later in the meeting, please ask that it be removed when I list the consent items. The request to remove an item from consent does not require a second. Just a few notes on the consent agenda, the Four Towns meeting minutes, when the referenced link to the school committee's minutes, when that link is available, we will add that link in. The CPA motion is to refer the CPA items, but there will be a presentation by the CPA chair and an opportunity to ask questions and get your questions out there during the meeting, even if the motion remains on consent. And for the testimony, if the testimony authorization for me to submit testimony to the state legislature remains on consent, I will be, even if it doesn't, I will be accepting comments until Thursday of this week. And we'll finalize that testimony on Thursday to send on Friday. But if you want to have a conversation about it, it's fine to remove it, but I wanted to let everyone know that even if it stays on, there's an opportunity to let me know what you want changed or added or anything. So with that, I'm going to read the items on consent at this time, and then I'll see if there are anyone that wants to remove anything. This is the following items, and it's to move the following items in the printed motions thereunder and approve the items as a single unit if they stay on. And it is 6A, adoption of the Purple Heart Community Proclamation. 6B, adoption of 2026 Arbor Month Proclamation. 6C, adoption of Global Village Day Proclamation. 8A, referral of the Community Preservation Act appropriations to Finance Committee. 8B, adoption of Water Fund Appropriation and Transfer Order FY 2605B, an order appropriating funds for the Town of Amherst Water Fund Capital Program, purchase of watershed land for water supply protection. 8E, authorization for the president to submit testimony on behalf of the council. 8F, approval of placement of Purple Heart community signage in the public way. 9B1, appointment of non-voting members of Finance Committee, Kathleen Mitchell, effective immediately for a term to expire June 30th, 2028, and Jeffrey Robert, effective July 1, 2026, for a term to expire June 30, 2028. And 11A and B, approval of minutes, March 9th, 2026, public forum on supplemental budget appropriations and regular meeting, and March 14, 2026, special council and finance committee meeting for towns. Is there anyone who would like to remove anything from the consent agenda? Councillor Brevik.
Yes, I'd like to remove 8E.
That is the authorization for the president to submit testimony. Is there anyone else that would like to remove anything from the consent agenda? Seeing none, is there a second for the motion?
Shane seconds.
We will move into a vote. We start with Councillor Ken Martin.
Yes.
Hold on a second. I did not see that hand. Thank you so much, Councillor Walker. Councillor Lord.
You're welcome. Thank you. I need to formally recuse myself from, there's no discussion because it's on the consent agenda, but the vote regarding the Community Preservation Act appropriation to the Finance Committee, as I currently serve as a trustee steward on the Goodwin Memorial Church, who has submitted a grant application. And I don't want my participation to appear to be a conflict of interest. One quick question. I couldn't find in our bylaws or rules and regulations if I need to remove myself from the room during that vote as a recused.
Typically, when a member is recusing themselves, they'll remove themselves from the dais. Since this is a consent agenda vote, I think it's perfectly acceptable for you to stay where you are. If there were a true conflict of interest, the best advice is to remove yourself from the meeting room.
Thank you.
So you can. Okay, thank you, Councillor Lord. I've noted that recusal. Seeing no other hands, I'll start with Councillor Ken Martin. Sorry for interrupting you the last time.
Yes.
Andy Churchill.
Yes.
Anna Devlin Gauthier.
Aye.
Lynn Griesemer.
Aye.
Mandy Jo Haneke is an aye. Councillor Lord is recused. Sam McLeod.
Aye.
Pam Rooney.
Yes.
Councillor Ryan.
Aye.
Kathy Shane.
Yes.
Jennifer Taub.
Yes.
Councillor Walker.
Yes.
And Councillor Brevik.
Yes.
That is unanimous with 12 in favor and 0 opposed. We are moving on to resolutions and proclamations. We have 3 to read the whereas clauses. We will start with, I'm going to read the Purple Heart resolution, whereas, wherefore, now there are 4 clauses. So this is the Town of Amherst proclamation declaring Amherst a Purple Heart community Now therefore, we, the Amherst Town Council hereby proclaims that the town of Amherst is a Purple Heart community honoring the service and sacrifice of those from our community and around the nation who were awarded the Purple Heart while serving in our nation's wars. Be it further proclaimed that the town of Amherst will recognize August 7th as Purple Heart Day and urge all residents and organizations to display the American flag, as well as other public expressions in recognition of the town's Purple Heart recipients. The next one is the 2026 Arbor Month proclamation. Anna?
Happily. I'm going to throw in one of the whereases along with the now therefore because it's got some information. So, final whereas. Whereas the Public Shade Tree Committee will honor the month, Arbor Month, with a public tree planting on Saturday, April 11th, 2026. Sponsor another tree planting on Arbor Day, Friday, April 24, 2026. And provide free tree saplings and educational materials at the 14th Annual Amherst Sustainability Festival on Saturday, April 25th, 2026. Now, therefore, we, the Amherst Town Council, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2026 as Arbor Month in the town of Amherst, and we urge all residents to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands and to support our town's urban forestry program.
Thank you, Anna. Global Village Day proclamation. Lynn or Pam? Which one of you would like to read that?
Yeah. Now therefore, we, the Amherst Town Council, do hereby proclaim April 11th, 2026 as Amherst Global Village Festival Day and encourage all residents to participate in this special day of celebration, education, and cultural exchange from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. at Amherst Regional High School. Be it further proclaimed that through the Amherst Global Village Festival Day, we honor diversity that strengthens our community and seek to inspire all residents to continue fostering understanding and respect across cultures. May this day serve as a reminder of the beauty of our shared humanity and our collective responsibility to build a more united world.
Thank you. We are now going to move on to presentations and discussion items. This is on the Sanctuary Community Bylaw Data Request Response. Paul, would you like to say anything about it?
Sure. So in the Sanctuary Community Bylaw, there is a provision for 3 registered voters to request information, which we have provided to the council, and it needs to be presented at a council meeting, which is being done tonight. And those 3 registered voters are all members of the Human Rights Commission. They have received the response as well.
Are there any questions for Paul on the memo and response he provided? For those in the audience, for all 4 items that were requested for information, there was no, they were all none this year. Seeing no hands, we will move on. That brings us to action items. As promised, we are moving into the Community Preservation Act Committee appropriations. The motion was referred, but we will welcome Katie Sobel, Chair of the CPA Committee, up to make the presentation.
I'm so happy to be here. I really appreciate the chance to do a little, very brief, I promise, presentation, but thank you all for your service. I really appreciate what you're doing here. So I did want to also thank the committee itself, because I'm here. Ellen Kiter is here as one member of the CPA committee, and I'm in my sixth season of CPA. It's my final one and my first year as chair, following in the footsteps of one of your council members here, following very closely in his footsteps. I serve alongside 8 others. Tim Neal, who has moved, he's on his way to Colorado, and so has after finishing up the season, has resigned from the committee. But we had 4 new committee members: Ellen Kiter, Jonas Cox, Angus McLeod, and Mark Barrett. Also Jason Dorney, Robin Fordham, and Bob Saul joined me in the work this season. So I want to thank each one of them because they showed up very carefully prepared. They each brought their own unique perspective to this work, and they provided very thoughtful insights and astute questions. And I have to say, joining the CPA, there's a steep learning curve. There's a lot, there are a lot of layers to it. And this year, as you all know better than me, we have an incredibly generous and devoted community, and very involved. And this year was even more so with the volume of proposals we received. Just as a point of reference, last year we received 11 proposals, and it's being recorded. And we had we had 5 meetings to review those proposals and deliberate. And this year we had 16 proposals. So 16 applications required us to have about 8 meetings. So it was a little bit of a heavier lift. And so I really appreciate what the it's a team effort. So I appreciate what everyone brought to each meeting. I also wanted to thank the public, generally speaking, because we had an unbelievable outpouring of public comment this year. Not only do we have 16 proposals, but we had the amount of written public comment and those who showed up to meetings to provide public comment eclipsed any of my previous 5 seasons. So it just demonstrated again the deep commitment that Amherst residents have for each other and in their own town government. So really appreciate that. Because actually that town, as you all know, more than this is for those who are maybe watching, but the input does shape the way the committee thinks about and looks at and examines and does additional inquiry around these proposals. So really appreciate that. And thanks to Dave Zomek and Sean Magnano. This meeting is being recorded. Who I really appreciate their expertise, but also their entire, their teams have been unbelievable. So huge thanks to the town staff because their expertise is needed for this work. It's highly technical, and we really appreciate that support. But I really want to say a special thanks to Leah Carver, who was her first time supporting us from the town. So she was dealing with a new chair, 4 new members, and had never done this before. So it was especially heavy lift for her. And she made it seem easy and enjoyable, even though I know it probably wasn't. She was terrific. She was incredibly responsive and supportive and very patient. So I appreciate Leah. Just very quickly, and then I'm happy to take any questions. The process this year followed the process that we've been following for the past couple of years without significant change. Essentially, there's about a month for people when the application goes live, for folks to apply. At the close of that application period, Leah sent all of the 16 applications to us, to the committee members. We all read them. We provided questions that we had, clarifying questions. The applicants then responded to those questions. So we had that information plus their application, and then they were each invited to come and make a brief presentation and answer questions at one of our meetings. So it was a pretty thorough process. We also had a public hearing, and we took public comments at each meeting, except for those in which we were deliberating. So we did have 8 meetings this year, which was more than the 5 we had last year. But we did have 6.4 million in requests for about $3 million in available funds. So it does take a while to understand each of these proposals, how they adhere to the CPA laws and regulations, and to try to figure out how to determine priority. It's not an easy thing to do, to select and weighing all the criteria, the public comment. And we also decided as a group in our deliberations that we could give a little bit to every proposal because all of the proposals were interesting and worthy proposals. But we decided against that because we wanted to be sure that sometimes when you just give a little bit, the project can't move forward and can't be completed in the time in which it was intended. So we did have to make some difficult decisions, and we did not fund 2 projects. We reduced a few projects, and one proposal that is an urgent proposal, needed a bit more work, and unfortunately, one of the applicants passed away during our season, and so we wanted to delay that decision. And we also recommended bonding for one of the projects. So it was a complex recipe that we provided our recommendations to y'all, and you have them. It's up on the screen here for those who are in the Zoom audience. Not easy to come to these decisions, but we feel really proud about the hard work of deliberating and appreciate everyone's proposals, and offer this up to the town council in the hopes that you'll move things forward for us.
Thank you. Counselors, are there any questions? Counselor Brevik.
Yeah, and thank you so much for that overview. And I just wanted to note, I feel like it's so impressive that so many of these are.
Can you speak or move the mic up?
Sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
So many of these were 7-0 votes in the packet, and I think that's a real testament to the work of the committee. And I tuned into a few of your meetings, and really, I think there were some really wonderful discussions, and I think it just is a model in both that participatory budgeting kind of approach. And I'm wondering, my question is, I guess the one that is a little more of a split, and it really isn't much, that's 5 to 5 to 1, is the Jones Library project. And I'm wondering if you can just give us a very brief, I'm sure there was a lot of conversation around this. I know I listened to some of it. What were the main points that made that a little bit more of a split among committee members? If you could summarize that. Yeah.
There were a few basic concerns that were raised by the public. First of all, there was enormous outpouring support for that particular project. Well over 100 comments, written comments, as well as those live and in person. So we had that body. And then we had several questions about a town council vote that no further funding would be given to the library, sort of understood by some what that meant, and there was an interpretation by others about what that meant. There was some confusion over whether or not the historic preservation, the windows being replaced, were part of historic preservation, which we had to go, ask additional questions of the town and of the Jones Library Incorporated with the applicants. I think those were the two main sort of points of concern, that perhaps if we made the recommendation that the town council wouldn't approve it. And so it was sort of a moot point. And then couldn't we use wouldn't it be better to use that funding for something else if it was going to be denied by town council? So it was a lot, there was some sort of, wondering about a previous statement that was made. So I think those were the main, there were other concerns brought up, but those were the ones in terms of the CPA committee that were raised. There were some, I think in thinking about funding the library, there had been some funding for special collections through the FY21 process of the CPA. And I think some voiced a concern about using those sort of, that we were doing double dipping or sort of coming back again, which happens. Lots of organizations, and including the town, come back for repeat funding for different projects, some of which we approved here. So those were the main issues.
Okay, thank you. Pam.
Thank you. Was the question answered, if something is not voted by the council, can it be used, can it be distributed to other purposes, was a question that I would love to hear the answer. I would also focus on the Jones project. I wasn't so concerned about double dipping, but I was concerned that the request for dollars was for elements that in fact were covered in the bid. So, and already taken care of essentially. So I went back and looked at some questions that were answered back in March of 2025. And it was one of the topics was preservation and restoration of woodwork. And the first item says, notably, approximately 80% of the existing mahogany woodwork will remain in place. Of the work to be removed, repurposing was included in the rebid scope of work. And so work is already priced into the project. So that's a quote from our meeting a year ago. And secondly, that there was a draft MOA that committed to a little bit of additional areas of woodwork, but that it says here, but it would likely be in the range of $25,000 to $75,000. That's a very far cry than $477, I think, $1,000. So that was my concern, is when I go to the bid docs, the very first requisition request for money, while I was still on that committee, the very first breakdown of costs had covered all of the materials for woodwork. It was all covered under the wood carpentry section of the bid. So I'm curious, is there an actual cost estimate of what makes up the 470 something thousand? And isn't it already covered in our bid? Thank you.
I think it was covered in the bid. It wasn't an additional amount. And I think it's, the Jones Library Inc. was applying like it would for any grant for additional funding to support that portion of the funds that they're raising. I guess it's, there's some question of whether or not the funds have been appropriated already by the town. And I think that that's something for the town council to consider, whether or not we need a legal opinion on that. That wasn't for us to decide. We went on the merits of the application, the need, the urgency, the impact, and the number of residents that would benefit from that. And it did have a full detailed budget for all that was being requested. Does that answer your question?
Happy.
I'm following up on the previous two. I'm the chair of the finance committee, so we'll have a chance to delve into these more. So you don't have to answer this now, but it'd be great to have it when we meet on the 7th of April. What exactly is this money for? And why I'm saying exactly is a lot of the construction has already happened and some of the interior work. So is it for work that hasn't happened yet is the question, versus work that has been completed and paid for? So I just, and I know the original request was much higher and then this got down.
Yep.
So I would just like to know what exactly the money is for. And I did read the letters you were getting, and a lot of people seem to think that without this money, the woodwork wouldn't be saved. But the woodwork was always in the budget, so it wasn't a question of adding money to do something that hadn't been done before. So I wasn't sure whether people understood that it was already being paid for or not on the letters. The letters we received too, that it was save the wood, save the mahogany, and that had been included. So I would just like more information on what the money is for.
Sure.
And whether some of that work has already been done.
That definitely, the proposals are all available, and I'd be happy to answer those questions at the finance meeting. They're available
Okay.
online.
You know, and as I
With
said,
detail.
it's a lot smaller than the original, so it may be that the library people themselves know whether the work has already been done. Is, you know, because I don't think we should be paying, well, I don't think we legally can pay for work that has already been done and paid for in the construction. So I just wanted to know what is outstanding. And I looked at the original straw votes you took on it, and this was by far the lowest rated project, but then you did get this deluge of letters. So I liked the process you did, which was originally what can you do?
Yep.
So that's my question on this one. And then related to if we pulled out a project and whether it's this one or another one, does that money then get reserved for the following year? Or would you, because see, you basically as a committee have stopped meeting, I think. Or would you go back and look at, there were others that were cut down, they asked for more money and they were reduced. Would you be thinking of enhancing their budget? So it's just a question on, does it get reserved for the following year or not?
My understanding is that it can be, that the committee can meet between now and June 30th and make another recommendation to town council.
And could it also, one project is being funded by debt, and if you didn't fund another large project, you could change your mind on to the extent to which debt had to be used for one of the projects. Is that correct?
That would be up to the town council.
Okay, thank you.
You can make that decision.
Yeah. Lynn,
Sean Mangano is here. He had his hand up a moment ago. I'm not sure if you wanted to speak to that question.
yeah, Sean.
I
had
was
his
just
hand
gonna,
up. Okay.
Katie answered it perfectly that the money, if this project was rejected, the committee would have to meet again and have a hearing if it's for a different project, or they'd have to revote their recommendations if it was for something new. So Katie already answered that. Thank you.
Thanks. Lynn,
Yes, I want to disclose that I will be filing a disclosure statement. My husband is the contact person for one of the applications regarding the Mill River project. This is the second time that I will be filing that disclosure. He in no way is being compensated. He's totally a volunteer. I don't even want to count the hours he's given. But I do not see this as any reason for me not to be able to vote. Thank you.
thank you. Counselor Cano Martin.
Yes, so this is also concerning the Jones project. So my understanding is that CPA funds cannot be used for a project that doesn't qualify as a historic preservation project. And also that the Mass Historic Commission has denied historic tax credits for this project more than once because it violates 5 of the 10 standards. So you're not able to get those funds unless you're in compliance with those standards. And so I was wondering if you could speak to your decision to fund this project, given those restrictions.
I'm happy to do that. That my understanding of the law is that the project has to adhere to the national standards, and the project being requested for CPA funds does adhere.
Do you have any follow-up?
I think we're talking about the same project.
The national standards, I believe, my understanding is that the entire Jones Library project didn't meet every national standard. But this particular project being requested for funding, the woodwork, et cetera, does meet all of the national standards.
Is there documentation that can be shared on that?
I believe so. I think it's in their proposal.
Sean has his hand up. Would you like to defer to Sean?
Yeah, I'm not going to be much more help, but I was just going to say we did seek a legal opinion on that piece, and the advice from legal counsel, which is in your packet, is that we work with a specialist just to address that specific question. So that would be our next step, to get that information for you all to reaffirm what Katie just said, hopefully before Finance Committee meets.
Okay. Jennifer Top.
Thank you. And thank you very much for the presentation. I still like it, circling back to what Amber and Pam's comments, So it's the woodwork that qualifies for historic preservation, but it's that woodwork which has already been covered in the budget. So I hope Finance Committee can address that, because that circle doesn't quite hold together for me. But my other question was, and this is more, I guess, maybe to the council president or the clerk of the council, what is the quantum of vote needed to approve CPA recommendations? Is it a majority or a supermajority?
So for borrowing, it would be 9. For non-borrowing, it is 7.
And, okay, so then do we vote on each individual recommendation?
Typically, we vote borrowing in one vote because it's one quantum. So if there's multiple borrowings, it tends to be in the same financial order. And then the non-borrowing in another one. There have been instances in the past where councilors have requested separate votes for certain projects, and that is always a possibility. But it's generally presented initially as one vote for the non-borrowing projects and one vote for the borrowing projects. But councilors in the past have pulled out specific votes for individual vote.
So in
So
other words, the motion is divisible.
Yeah, yeah.
So is the
Athena
Jones
just said it's
Library a
dividable.
borrowing?
It is not.
Is not. Okay, thank you.
Andy?
We have a memo in our packet that talks about the legality of the use of these funds for the library, and it just in terms of just generally understanding the project, which is admittedly complicated. There are 3 parts to it. One is the 15.8 million or whatever it is. So we said we would pay as a town, and then there's the various the state library grant and things like that comes at approximately another third of the cost, and then the friends and trustees are looking to get other grants and fundraising to raise the last third. And as far as the notion of whether some of the stuff is what some of our money has been spent already, or whether the 1/3 that we've put in is paying for what part of the library. This is a 45 or something like roughly $45 million project, and we haven't raised all the money. The community hasn't raised all the money yet. So to use these funds to help close that gap, as they would with any other grant, seems appropriate to me.
Happy.
I just want to follow up on, Lynn reminded me when she talked about conflict of interest. I will be filing one on the history trail, not because I'm involved in it in any way, but my husband is treasurer of the District 1 Neighborhood Association that is the applicant. And I don't believe there's a conflict, and I will be filing that. But I just wanted to make sure people knew that there's a person in my household who knows a lot about this particular project.
Thank you. Sam?
Thank you, Mandy. Any questions that I had in my mind have been asked by other
Sorry, can you speak closer to the mic or bring the mic closer?
Any
Thank you.
questions that I had have been asked by other counselors, but I wanted to thank Katie and the committee for their hard work from the outside looking in. Certainly from the start, a very challenging year for deliberations. I was able to watch some of them, and it seemed that you really took your time as a committee and thought things thoroughly. I know it's not easy, and I appreciate you being here, and it's good to see you both.
Anna?
I echo the gratitudes to CPA. It was one of my favorite committees to serve on a long time ago, and I'm grateful for the work that you do. I had a question for my fellow counselors. I think for me, the legal memo that we had in our packet very clearly addressed the issue of supplanting, and going into these conversations in finance, it sounds like the question of supplanting is still on folks' minds. And so I'm curious, what beyond what is spelled out in the memo would you like us to discuss in finance? Is it a matter of not agreeing with the memo? I want to make sure that we're having a conversation that leads to an answer of that question, because I feel the question had already been answered. So that's why it did not stick out to me as a question. So I'm curious whether or not folks I guess, how the question still existed beyond what was in the memo from KP Law about supplanting. If that doesn't make sense, let me know. I'm happy to try to clarify better.
Lynn?
This actually picks up on where Anna's going, and that is, it seems to me that some of the questions raised tonight go beyond the scope of the application. So that, for instance, is this, first, let's put it down. There's a budget and then there's funds. Whether it's in the budget doesn't mean it was funded. So I see this as an application to fund a budget that is already out. Second of all, if you're going to start asking questions about what is been done, not been done, what covers the woodwork and so forth, I think that is beyond what we should expect Katie and her committee to be able to answer. And if we feel that it is relevant, then I would strongly urge that we consult as to whether or not it's appropriate to bring somebody in from the building committee beyond Sean Mangano. Because if we're going to get into the technicality of whether this piece was funded by this, then, and therefore, do we want to fund this piece that's being requested of us? This is beyond what I think we can expect for our CPA committee, who have done a marvelous job. Thank you.
Kathy?
Lynn, I agree with that. That's why I said I didn't think Katie needed to answer this, but I think I will send them and hopefully they'll get sent to Sharon, Sherry, and the trustees. I was at a CPA meeting several years ago where when they discovered the applicant was applying for work that had already been done, they said, we can't pay for it if it's already been done. So that's, this started out as 1.2, it's down to 500,000. And so you're right, there is no way your committee would know this, but they were explicitly told, I'm sorry, you should have come to us before you did the work. And it was over $10,000. I mean, it was not it was a really small piece, but it was a CPA rule. This has nothing, not larger issue of the merit or not, or the council's president at the time saying no more tax dollars for this. These are tax dollars. They're CPA tax dollars, but they're tax dollars. So you're correct. And that's why I thought just any questions we have that are specific to the request probably need to go back to the trustees and the building committee who will know the answers. Not, I can't expect you to know.
Thank you. And Kathy, if may I?
You may speak closer to the mic, though, please. Thank you.
You mentioned the straw poll, and I just wanted, for those who are watching and who haven't been to a CPA meeting, that in order for us to prioritize the order in which we speak about and deliberate on projects, we try to have an initial straw poll, we call it, to get a sense of where people stand, not on the merits of the project, but on we don't have enough money, so what should come first and what should come second? Or are we in agreement or not in agreement? Are we far away from each other, need to have more conversation? So that's one of the, just for, if you haven't been to a riveting meeting, that's what the straw poll is designed for. It's not really voting on the merits, so to speak.
Thank you. Sean?
Thank you. I was just going to ask, and I'll look to see if, the town manager is okay with this, but if there's additional questions and even the questions that were asked tonight, if they could be either sent to myself or Leah, I think we could compile those and make sure they all get answered at Finance Committee, and we can work with Katie to make sure they get, fully addressed at the meeting in a couple of weeks.
Thank you. And Paul was nodding his head yes to that. So seeing no other hands, thank you so much, Katie and Leah, for coming tonight. Finance will see you on April 7th, and we'll have the public hearing on this on April 6th.
Thank you.
We already dealt with the motion under the CPA and the motion under the water fund, so we will move to the Charter Review Committee recommendations. I'm going to make the motion and then we will move into conversation, and if there's any motions to amend, we'll deal with them at that time. So the motion is in accordance with Charter Section 9.6 to act on the recommendations proposed by the 2024 Charter Review Committee as follows, with consideration given to the 2026-03-17 TC discussion on Charter Review Committee report. Through the town manager to request the town attorney prepare language for a special act to amend the charter for the following recommendations: 1, 2, 3, 7, 9, 10, 12, 13, 20, and 22. Through the town manager to request the town attorney prepare motion and regular town ballot language for amending the charter through the MGL Chapter 43B process for the following recommendations. At this point, there are none. To refer the following recommendations to the Governance, Organization, and Legislation Committee for substantive discussion and recommendation to the Town Council by June 29, 2026. 5, 6, 8, 11, 14, 15, 16, 21, and recommendation for a rule change for recommendation 4. To refer the following recommendations to the Finance Committee for substantive discussion and recommendation to the Town Council by August 30th, 2026. The date changed at the request of the Finance Committee Chair. 17 and 18. To table the following recommendations. 19. Is there a second? Andy Churchill seconds it. I see one hand. We're going to handle this similar to the last time, but if there's motions to amend, we'll deal with the formal amendments. There's also discussion as to whether you want to vote for or against this. And then I know I had asked counselors to see and be ready to recommend if they wanted 43B town ballot, move something from special act to town ballot to do that too. And that would be a motion to amend. So we'll start with Anna.
Yeah, I would be fine if this were a friendly amendment, but I would also like to request an extension until August, given the amount that's been referred to GOL recently. Please don't make us report back to you in June. We won't. I mean, you'll get one that says we need more time. So if you'd like to just save everybody the energy of doing that, it would be helpful. And I can make a formal motion if you'd like me to, but
without objection, we'll amend the June 29 for GOL to August 30th.
Thank you.
Kathy.
I just have a request if you could show them up on the screen, because I know I should have marked up my copy. I just took down the list. I was trying to figure out which wasn't referred anywhere, Mandy. So if we could see it on the screen, it would be great.
They're all dealt with somewhere on the motion. The only one that is being tabled is number 19, and 19, at least in the motion, number 19 is a tabled, and that is the Finance Committee requested change from may to shall on resident members.
Okay, so 6. Okay. It's in front of me and I can look at it. I was just trying to figure out where 16 went.
16 is in refer to GOL.
Is a GOL. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Brevik.
I just wanted to quickly ask or just to make sure that none of this has changed since the last time we talked about it. So maybe others did, but I didn't spot check each number, but just wanted to make sure that nothing was different from the last time that we discussed this as a group.
So this, other than those 2 date changes, is what, when we discussed it at the last meeting and straw polled, this is changed as to where the straw polls would have put it. So it's different from what was in the packet at the last meeting, but at the end of the discussion, this is what we ended the discussion with. Does that make sense? Okay. Councillor Ryan.
So as I mentioned at our last meeting, I had some deep concerns about item 9, which currently is in a motion as presented, is going to go to the town attorney for language. And so I would like to make a motion to remove 9 and to send it to GOL for further discussion.
So Councillor Ryan has made a motion to amend to move number 9 to referral to GOL. Is there a second? Andy Churchill seconds that. Is there discussion on that motion to amend to move number 9?
Well, I would like to speak to it if I may.
Yes, you may,
Thank
Counselor
you.
Ryan.
Thank you. I think this stands out as being very different from most of the other items that are in this list. It's a very heavy ask on the council, potentially up to 9 appointments on a yearly basis. That's the first concern I have. It doesn't seem to fit with the others in terms of more procedural or sorts of things where I think there's strong agreement. Last time, a number of counselors, I wasn't the only one, expressed concerns about this and the need for further discussion. I also have concerns about putting resident members on our other committees in terms of simply accountability. I think in the Finance Committee, it's worked very well because it's a very specific charge. We're looking for people that have very specific backgrounds in finance to supplement the work of that particular committee. But when we look at our other council committees, they deal with a wide range of topics. And my concern is that, in some sense, by appointing residents, we're giving certain voices precedence over others. There are many ways in which residents can make their voices heard and have made their voices heard. So I have some real deep reservations about this. And I'd like further discussion rather than just sending this off and having it either put on a ballot or done as a special act. So that's my reason for having this removed in the hopes that we can talk about it in more detail before we actually move on it one way or the other.
Thank you. Kathy, is your comment on this motion to amend? Okay,
Yes,
Kathy.
it is. I think the counter argument to that is, number one, we don't have to have 5 counselors on every committee. We made that decision 8 years ago. We could revisit it and talk about less onerous. I think the presence of additional people potentially brings stability and long-term and knowledge, depending on which committee. And I was assuming that this would be written as may include, so it wouldn't mean, for example, maybe GOL, we don't want to have resident members, but we do on CRC or TSO. So it would still, just as the first year we were counselors, the wording said may for finance. We had a long discussion on it and we decided we'd try it out, but it was permissive rather than instructing us to, and it's worked well. So if I go through our committees, I think we would benefit a lot if CRC had some 3-year with a potential 3-year renewal people who really knew planning and zoning very well in case there's a lot of turnover in the council. If on TSO, I'd flip to really new roads, sidewalks, whatever hasn't been already transferred to the new commission. But outreach, public safety, but so we've got such a rich, capable group of residents. Opening up some ability for that, I think, is with this, and I think we could do it in our rules. But if we put it in the charter, it reminds us that we have the permission to do it, which is what it just did on finance. So that's why I think it is an important thing to keep in the recommended changes to the charter.
Jennifer.
Yes, I've been really torn on this one, but I tend to agree with George. I mean, I could, live with May, but I think I would want to see more of a more in-depth council discussion about this, because I also worry that you would really have to have balance in the residents you selected to be on. As George said, we're not necessarily looking for like a finance expertise, but George and I may be concerned about different resident perspectives, but I share that concern. I would want to have, and I agreed with Andy that these are council committees. I mean, I understand the, the case can be made for, what residents bring, but I'm torn about this one. So I'm just, would like to, so I agree with George. I would like to see more of a discussion before we make a decision.
Lynn?
So I'm looking at two different versions. I'm looking at this recommendation, and then I'm looking at the chart that we all had where lots of different additions were made. And in that chart, it says the town council shall determine its own standing or ad hoc committees, which may include members of the public who shall have a voice but no vote in the committee's deliberation. Council rules shall address the appointment of such members. So which one are we voting?
So the document that is titled 260317 in your packet today, TC discussion, that has sort of three main columns. Well, that's the one that's referenced in the motion. The green language that is in that document, and green means it was proposed by the Charter Review Committee, is what you just read, which may include members of the public, is the proposed language to add. And if number 9 stays in special act, that is presumably the language that would come back from the town attorney with whatever motion language looks like, and then we would vote on that specific language as sending for special acts. So I would say, to answer your question, that is the language that's sort of under consideration to send to the town attorney or to send to GOL.
And just to review part of our discussion in the past, if we put this in, but it's not in the charter, unless we can figure some special way to do this through rule, the ad hoc members would be appointed by the president, not by the council. So it has to go in the charter to have the council appoint any ad hoc members.
That is my understanding, because the charter gives all council, the president, the authority to appoint all members of council committees.
And if it went back to GOL and they came back with language that suggested in the rules of procedure that the president strongly urged to do this in consultation with the rest of the council, that still is not fine. Am I correct?
That would be my understanding, because the charter gives the president the sole authority to do appointing.
I just want to make sure we understand that other nuance was part of the issue of charter versus not charter.
Thank you. Andy?
So if we're going to have that kind of nuanced conversation, it should go to GOL so they can talk about it, about whether it's going to be in rules or whether it's going to be, in the charter. So I'm concerned standing as is that it's just going to be the responsibility of the entire council to make these appointments. Is that the case?
If put in the charter, then the council would have the ability in the rules to decide who would do those appointments.
Okay.
If not put in the charter, it would fall to the president if the council chose to put residents on council committees.
Okay, I just think that there's enough to discuss here that, whether it should go to rules, whether it should go to council, that we shouldn't just push it through to get language from the lawyers, but we should go to GOL and have them think about it and come back to us.
Councilor Brevik?
I feel like a piece of information that's missing for me is what may looks like. So if a committee can do this, if it's in the charter and they now can do this, and they decide to do it, what is the process for then going forward with that? Because if that involves the council discussion, it may be better not to load this up on GOL now and put it in the charter as an option. And then when committees decide that if this is what they want to do, or they want to put it forward to the council, then the discussion can happen then at the appropriate time for each committee. or when it makes sense for each committee versus now in the mix of all of these other things.
So the council could do it now, as Lynn stated. If the council did it, the president would be the appointing authority. But in order for the council, for that to happen, the council would need to vote a change to either any of the three charges or all of the three committee charges that it has. So that would be its own discussion. So I think that's answering your question, is in order to do it at all, whether this changes in the charter or not, the council must change the charges on who is on, who's on the committee on the charge, and therefore that would also be a council discussion.
So the changing of the charges will be its own item for discussion at some point.
Yes.
And so then I would just say, then the question for me is, does that make sense to still bring it to GOL and have GOL discuss it, or can we accomplish what we need to accomplish in the discussion item of changing the charges?
Thank you. Sam?
Thank you, Mandy. One of the counselors, Counselor Ryan, expressed concern, strong concern, and from the discussion, it appears to me that there are nuances here. I'm not looking to burden GOL, but it seems to me that what's the downside of enabling further discussion? Changes to the charter are going to be permanent, or at least until the next discussion. So if there's an interim step to enable further deliberation, I don't see any negative to that. So I'd be in support of Counselor Ryan's.
Thank you. Both Lynn and Jennifer have spoken. Are we ready to move to a vote, or do you guys need to speak again? Lynn?
Just going back to the point that Councilor Brevick made. When we debated this for finance, there was a big debate. We decided to go ahead and try it. And therefore we changed the charge and we sought members. And that was 7-8 years ago. The other thing I want to point out is there is nothing in the charter that requires any other committee than finance. So that at some point in the future, somebody could come to the council, or the council could discuss among ourselves and say, these are not the 4 committees we want. They could change committees. So there's a lot more nuance here than I think people are completely understanding, because the committees got set up basically 8 years ago, and took us a little while to come up with the final 4th, but we've stuck with them. Does that mean they're forever? No, except for finance. It's the only one required in the chart.
Jennifer? We can't hear you. You're still muted, Jennifer.
I'm sorry. If we decide that we would like resident non-voting members on CRC and TSO, why wouldn't that happen the way finance appointments happen, which is residents apply and then the council, they're interviewed, I guess, by GOL, and then the council votes? Why would it be a council president appointment?
Because in the charter, the finance committee reference to resident members includes the language, let me read it right, which may include members of the public who shall have a voice but no vote in the committee's deliberations. And then it includes the language, council rules shall address the appointment of such members. And so the charter specifically says, and basically overrules the council committee reference in section 2, that the president appoints all members of council committees by having that reference to council rules shall address the appointment of such members for finance committee resident members. That's why our rules address how to appoint them.
So we could have that for if we decide to move forward with other committees having resident representatives.
If it's in the charter.
Yeah, only if it's in the charter. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Kathy, and then we're going to move to a vote on the motion to amend.
Okay, that was helpful, Mandy, that you read that extra clause. So the issue is the version of 9 that we're being proposed has a flaw in it, so we shouldn't cement it in legislation. And I'm fine with that. I do want to say there was an idea to do this in the first year or two of the council, and GOL voted it down, that not to do it. So I'd love to see a proposal for GOL to try it in a couple of other committees, rather than just dismissing it. So that's just, I'm not saying every committee, but just to think this through, because I do think it's been important that it's not the president appointing and that we do an SOI. We find out who's interested and we recruit people. I think that's been a very valuable feature. And if this language doesn't do that, then I'm not comfortable with it.
Anna,
My only request and provision here is that we consider which committees are doing the appointments. I don't think that I know that in the past it's fallen to GOL, and we need to have that discussion. Because I do think that if we're now talking about adding 2 committees in addition to other ones that pop up, such as bylaw review or charter review, other ones that have popped up, there is a significant load placed on one committee right now for appointments. And I do think that we need to consider whether or not committees would be running their own processes or whether they would all run through GOL. So I'd like that to be part of the discussion as this moves forward.
thank you. We are now going to vote on the motion to amend. The motion to amend is to, a yes vote will move number 9 to a referral to GOL. A no vote will keep it under a request to the town attorney for a special act to amend. Does everyone understand that? So we start with Andy Churchill,
Yes.
Anna Devlin Gauthier,
Aye.
Lynn Griesemer,
Aye.
Mandy Johanicky is a no. Counselor Lord, Sam McLeod,
Aye.
Pam Rooney,
Yes.
Counselor Ryan,
Aye.
Kathy Shane,
Yes.
Jennifer Taub,
Yes.
Counselor Walker,
Yes.
Counselor Brevick,
Yes.
and Counselor Kendall Martin.
Yes.
That is 12 in favor, 1 opposed. So this is moved to GOL as a referral to GOL. Are there any other, Counselor Kendall Martin?
Can I start a new topic?
Yes.
So I would also like to make a motion to move recommendation number 4 to the special act section.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, and we will take discussion. Would you like to speak to it, Counselor Kendall Martin?
Yeah, so the reason that I wanted to move this one is just because I was reviewing the the document that's attached in our packet, and it does look like, just recalling the many discussions we've had, that there were 8 counselors that were leaning towards supporting a 3-year term limit, and only 3 leaning towards opposing. And so it seemed like there was pretty much a consensus that we wanted to do this. And there is a lot that's going to GOL. So I think that it would be more efficient to move that to the special act and just get language for that drafted.
Thank you. Where'd my list go? Kathy?
I spoke to this last time. I don't think term limits are a good idea, and I don't want to enfranchise them, so I'm not going to speak to it again. I spoke to it at the last meeting, I think.
Andy?
Did we get a second on this? Because I'll second it.
Counselor Brevick seconded it.
With one clarification, I support this idea. I think it was supported by the Charter Review Committee, and I think the straw vote does show, a majority of folks leaning toward it. So the one question I have is, I can't quite tell what's crossed out. Is it 3 is crossed out and 4 is the current number, or 4 is crossed out and 3 is the current number in terms of years?
So 4 is crossed out and 3 is the current number based on the straw poll. So 3 is what would go to the town attorney.
I support it.
Is there further discussion on moving number 4 from, which would move the whole phrase, or, well, would remove the phrase recommendation for a rule change for recommendation 4 under GOL and move the number 4 up to special act language, so that we don't have this random wording left on. Pam?
Just to clarify, so if right now with a recommendation for a rule change, it means that 3 years from now, somebody might decide that the rule really ought to be 4 or the rule really ought to be 5. If it goes into the charter, however, it locks it in as a rule of 3. Is that correct?
That is correct, unless you change the charter again. So keeping it a rule would give more flexibility to decide to make decisions as to what the term limit is most logical after testing it out, say. Sam McLeod.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm not in favor of setting term limits. It seems odd to me to have motion that would prevent informed council from choosing whomever they may wish to be their quote unquote leader. So I would want to see this go to GOL. Thank you. Or to rules.
Thank you. Counselor Lord.
Thank you. I'm in favor of this, mostly because the word consecutive is in there, because there is authority bias. So you technically could serve for 21 years as long as every 3 years somebody else has a 4th year. And that gives other leaders a chance to step up, see if they like it. It's not permanent. So I hear people like, oh, no term limits, but I know you can also really, it gets tricky when, so I'm in favor of it because the word consecutive, so you could ultimately do more 3 years, but it's giving other people a chance to have leadership and different, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Breffic.
Just really quickly on the idea of being able to change it more easily and if it were in the rules, I don't know if I consider this to be something we'd want to be changing a lot frequently. I feel like it's something that requires making a decision and kind of sticking with that decision for consistency. I don't know if I can say much more than that, but I feel like going from 2 years to 1 year to 3 years to it would get confusing. And I think it is something that is really appropriate for the charter. And I also agree with what Counselor Lord said about authority bias, and also that some districts, have uncontested seats or don't necessarily have direct representation on the council. And so I think it's important that we change up leadership to ensure that we're really representing everybody.
Thank you. Kathy.
I meant to have my hand out.
Okay. Counselor Kendall Martin.
Yeah, I mean, I just to the point of, do we want to be changing this up? I agree with Counselor Brevik as well, that I think if we decide to change this up, there could be a perception that we're doing it to favor a certain person or another person, and we definitely wouldn't want to do that. And I do think that the 3 years is generally best practice when you talk about boards and committees, because it's long enough for the person to get to know the job, but also, not too long that we don't bring up new leadership. So I do think it's important for us to sort of like, hey, like we commit to this, like this makes sense. Thank you.
Counselor Ryan.
I have already said that I don't favor term limits. I think it's unwise for a body to tie its hands like this. I think it's particularly unwise to tie its hands permanently through the charter. New leadership is perfectly capable of coming forward at any time and place. The challenge to new leadership is to convince 7 other or 6 other members, I assume you'll vote for yourself, 6 other members to support your candidacy. But by locking this into the charter and locking it into a kind of permanent status, it really ties the hands of the council and can very easily find itself in a position where everyone agrees that there is someone who would be the best leader for this time and place, but they can't choose that person because the rules won't allow them. So I think this is not a wise decision. It's certainly not something that should be put in the charter. If the council wants to make these kinds of decisions, it should at least have the ability to undo them if they see that they're not really working out. So that's my thought.
Anna.
Yeah, thanks. Conceptually, I support this. I think, and Amber, I want to appreciate your thoughtfulness about GOL's workload here. I do think that I think that there's a good discussion to be had about whether this makes most sense as a rules change or a charter change. And so I could see this going for further discussion, just based on kind of what's happened right in the past 5 minutes. I think that that would be possibly beneficial. So I generally am in support of this concept, but I think GOL could maybe hash out where it makes the most sense and how to write it most clearly to encourage the future health of the body.
Thank you. Seeing no other hands, we're going to move to a vote. This is a motion to amend. A yes vote will move number 4 up to special act. A no vote will keep it under referral to GOL. We start with Anna.
No.
Lynn.
Nay.
Mandy Johanicky is a no. Counselor Lord.
Aye.
Sam McLeod.
Nay.
Pam Rooney.
No.
Counselor Ryan.
No.
Kathy Shane.
No.
Jennifer Taub.
No.
Counselor Walker.
Yes.
Counselor Brevick.
Yes.
Counselor Cano Martin.
Yes.
Andy Churchill.
Yes.
That is 4 in favor and 9 opposed. That motion fails.
I
Oh,
have 5 in favor.
Did I count wrong?
5, I got
Oh,
5.
I did count wrong. I'm sorry.
That's all
5
right.
in favor and 8 opposed.
Still fails.
Thank you for correcting me. The motion still fails. Thank you for correcting my miscounting. Are there any other motions? So I'm gonna make my own. I'm gonna move to amend to number 7, to move number 7 to tabling. It is currently in special act. Is there a second?
Second.
Lynn seconds that one, and I will speak to my motion. Number 7 is something, it is one that the straw poll leaned towards supporting and its committees. The committees have public comment, and then didn't really lean fully towards supporting the additional sentence of public comment, in addition to the special public comment, the president may allow for public comments there. This entire group of proposed additions is in the rules as is. And in my mind, that's a good place for this because it's more of a rule of procedure than it is a charter item. And so that's why I'm asking that it be tabled. I would be willing to agree to send it to GOL to consider whether we should add committees to the charter in terms of regular public comment periods, but it's really that second sentence that I'd like to see tabled. So because I think it's much more of a appropriate for the rules, which it's already in, than it is for the charter. So that's why I'm moved to move it to being tabled. Andy.
I actually had comments on a different thing, but I'm wondering if the issue is getting rid of the second sentence, does it make sense to just to rather have a motion to just add the and its committees?
So
to change to just the first part.
So in the motion where it says number 7, I'm not sure how I'd word that, but it would be a friendly amendment because that would be fine for me. But Athena, do you have any particular?
I'm not sure what the intent was. Well, what are you suggesting?
The attempt, what Mandy Jo said is the change says in the first part, all regular meetings of the town council, and it adds and its committees shall provide for a period of public comment. So if that were the change and leaving out the rest of it, I mean, it also says that the current charter says the town council may promulgate rules that regulate the period of public comment, which would remain, but the second sentence would
So-
go.
So to
it's-
table the second sentence,
Like,
is that what you're suggesting?
can we do that? It's basically to pass forward something that doesn't have the second sentence in it.
It's the big one in green, the addition of the full sentence is the part I'm really concerned with of not being appropriate for a charter. So that's why I was requesting the whole thing be tabled. So I would, if there's no objection, the motion to amend would be amended to table the addition of the complete sentence in number 7.
Just so I can understand, would we be voting on 7? It goes into the legislature then without that sentence?
So I'm letting Athena, she'll put the motion back up. So 7 would stay in special act, but 7 would also, the addition of the full sentence, yeah. And so in the special act section, you should probably add the phrase "and its committees only." The phrase "and its committees only" up there, just for clarity. So I'll get to you.
Thank you.
No, what I'm going to say is, for now, without objection, the motion to amend the amendment, I'm going to be clear here, to do what Athena just did is passed, which means we are discussing the motion to amend that would make those changes into the main motion. So in other words, the without objection was to make those changes instead of the motion I did to table the whole thing. But we are discussing whether those changes, people want that, or whether they want to leave all of 7 in special act. Is that clear?
Okay, so to put it another way, the motion is to table this part of the recommendation in number 7.
Yes.
Just have to link it to 7, because otherwise it's not linked to anything.
In recommendation number 7, right
at the
here.
bottom. Is there, Pam?
I would support this. I don't really want to be told that I can or can't have public comment at some point if we're talking about an item on the agenda. So I would be happy to get rid of the green lettering. And I would be happy to have it just read, all regular meetings of the town council and its committees shall provide for a period of public comment. I'm very happy with that. And that should go to, I guess, to special act.
Okay.
So if that's the motion.
That would
on
be a
the-
yes on the motion to amend.
yeah.
If that's what you just said, you'd vote yes on the motion to amend. Lynn?
I really hesitate to start putting in issues like this in the charter because it starts to become, again, you don't change charters that often. Okay. In my own personal experience, we often, not often, but regularly have had other public comment periods for special issues on the agenda. And at the same time, we've always reserved the possibility for special meetings of the council and to not have council public comment, but also they could have public comment. And what I'm trying to demonstrate is the greater flexibility that we allow, I think, is to the council's advantage. And if, I think about the meeting that we just had where public comment had not been included on the agenda and people were objecting to that. We all just need to be a little more vigilant. If we want public comment on the agenda, then we should make sure it gets put on the agenda, or at least ask the president to do so. So I'm just very concerned about locking in all of these nuance in a charter to the point that it doesn't get looked at for another 10 years.
Sam?
Thank you. A question on the green item that's being removed. As I read it, it indicates that the president may allow comments. So if this were to be included, which the amendment is to get rid of it, if it were included, does that mean that only the president can enable public comment on specific agenda items? In other words, is there anything, if this green text were removed, that would prevent either a committee chair or the president of the council from allowing public comment on agenda items?
So right now, our rules allow a chair or the president, a president for the council itself and a chair of a council committee to allow a second public comment period specific to an agenda item. If I gave an example today, under the CPA presentation we just had, we could have had we had to have the general public comment period. It's a regular council meeting. But I could have listed under the CPA item 8A, special public comment period CPA items, to allow a second one it doesn't prevent people from talking about CPA under general public comment. Maybe they would, maybe it's a little more efficient, who knows? They might speak under general public comment, but then they'd also have an opportunity to speak under special public comment too. That's allowed in our rules right now. My understanding, and Andy, I'm sure will correct me if I'm wrong, was that the Charter Review Committee was trying to move that from the rules to the charter.
So I hear what you're saying, but as I read it, does it indicate the green text that it would be the president going forward who would only be the one to do it?
So the proposed motion to amend would not put the green text in the charter at all.
I understand. I was trying to understand the rationale for the green text.
That's the Charter Review Committee's rationale. But I would say that the president sets the agenda in general. That's under the charter, and the agenda that's where public comment is included. So it's an appropriate thing to say the president does that.
And in council committees, the chairs currently can add additional comments for specific agenda items?
Yes, but this language that is proposed to be tabled doesn't actually address council committees, so that would still have to be addressed in the rules.
I guess not complicating the charter seems to make sense.
Kathy.
No comment.
Oh, okay. Councilor Brevik just unraised her hand. Andy.
I guess just from the position of the Charter Review Committee, I think the sense of the committee members who put this forward was that they heard a lot of interest in public comment and the public being able to speak, and that I'm not sure if they fully realized that this was already in the rules, actually. And the fact that we're adding committees to the general concept and then having it in the rules, to me, seems like it would pretty much match what was looked for.
Thank you. Seeing no other hands, a yes vote would essentially table everything but adding committees to the charter. As Pam so eloquently described in her comment, that's a yes vote. A no vote would keep the green language in the special act section to come back to us for vote. So would keep sort of a preference to putting the green language that's on the screen in the charter. We start with Lynn.
I'm abstaining because I don't agree with either.
Mandy is a yes. Counselor Lord.
Aye.
Sam McLeod.
Aye.
Pam Rooney.
Yes.
Counselor Ryan.
Aye.
Kathy Shane.
Yes.
Jennifer Taub.
Yes.
Counselor Walker.
Yes.
Counselor Brevik.
Yes.
Counselor Keno Martin.
Yes.
Andy Churchill.
Yes.
Anna Devlin Clothier.
Aye.
That is unanimous with one abstention. Andy, you had your hand up before I made that motion to amend because you had something else to talk about. I don't know whether you still do.
Yeah, I just had a couple of things that if number 6 and number 21 stay on, I think they're currently slated to go to GOL, and I support that. But number 6, the committee added that, let me see if I can find the language here. Said the affirmative vote of a majority of the full town council shall be necessary for the final passage of any bylaw or financial measure. And I think at the time we were thinking about things like borrowing and big financial things, but if there's smaller financial items, I'm not sure that we need to go to to have as high a bar. So I would hope that they would consider dropping or financial measure and just say that any bylaw would need that higher standard. And then for number 21, which talks about public dialogue, where the committee found the concept of public dialogues in the council rules and thought that that was a useful opportunity to have more informal conversations. The language that was put forward specifically allows that the council, the school committee, and the library trustees may hold a public dialogue session jointly or individually. And the current language for open meeting of the residents that would be adapted only talks about those individual committees having public dialogue. So as they're thinking about it, I think it would be useful to allow the opportunity, if we're talking about schools, to have the school committee and the council jointly sponsor a public dialogue. So I would hope that they would consider that as they're thinking about, what the language should be. So those two those are a couple things that I can put in writing and send to the GOL chair if that's helpful, but I just wanted to list those.
I would recommend that you do so, and I would encourage other counselors, after we deal with the motion that's on the floor, the main motion, if they have anything, thoughts on anything that's being referred to GOL, to send those comments to GOL so that GOL can include them in their discussion. And I just want to talk about number 21 that Andy mentioned, just the language that's in blue. I attempted to, and I will tell you, it is a sole attempt to get, I'm not wedded to the language at all, but I thought it might be helpful for GOL to see an attempt on what sort of combining an open meeting of the residents and the public dialogue together in one language would be. I'm not even going to say that it's a good attempt, but it's an attempt. So GOL, do what you want with it is sort of my things. But yeah, it was just an attempt based on the conversation the council had to put something in there so that GOL was starting somewhere. Is there any other comments, requests, discussion before we vote on the main motion? Anna.
Just again, I'm trying to make sure I've got my notes as GOL chair as we go, but I presume you're going to send me all of this in an editable format once we vote on everything that we're planning to vote on.
If you want the document that's referenced in this motion in a Word and you don't have it in a Word document, I can provide that for you.
Thank you very much. With the edits as have been made today, that would be great. I do not seem to have it in a Word document.
Athena will need to provide the motion with the edits.
My hero. Thank you.
I'll do that.
Seeing no other hands, we are voting on the main motion. The main motion includes the amendments to number 7 that we talked about and the amendments to number 9. The motion to amend to move number 4 failed, so that number is not moved. We will start with, I think we're starting with myself. I am an aye. Counselor Lord.
Aye.
Sam McLeod.
Aye.
Pam Rooney.
Yes.
Counselor Ryan.
Aye.
Kathy Shane.
Yes.
Jennifer Taub.
Yes.
Counselor Walker.
Yeah.
Counselor Brevik.
Yes.
Counselor Kendall Martin.
Yes.
Andy Churchill.
Yes.
Anna Devlin Gauthier.
Aye.
And Lynn Griesemer.
Aye.
That is unanimous. The motion passes. We have officially acted within the amount of time provided in the charter. We will be seeing a lot of this in a couple months, though. But congratulations, Council. We are now going to take a break. We will resume at 8:25. For those of you that wish, we have a couple of documents that were provided to us. There's only a few copies from the Consul General of Japan when we met with him on Friday that you can peruse during the break if you want. I will also include scans of that in my next precedence report for those that are not here, and there are not enough, but I thought I'd let people know. We'll see you at 8:25.
Hopefully it gets better.
There we go. It is 8:25, so if people can take their seats again and turn their videos back on, I will do the same. We're going to get started, so please turn your videos on. Anna, Counselor Ryan, I know you're remote, so I rely on the video to make sure you return.
I'm here.
Thank you. We will try and catch Counselor Walker when she returns remotely. We are moving on to item 8D, Beyond the Charter. We are done with the charter recommendations, but as promised, we have the rest of the report to deal with. And I thought tonight had some time on the agenda to start that conversation. I put the Beyond the Charter memo back in the packet from the work session. I think in my mind, the best way to go about this discussion is again to look at it's not that one. There was I took a straw poll of people and then I tried to slot them into spots based on that straw poll. There were a whole lot that the council didn't have any consensus at all on. Even the ones that are slotted into spots aren't full consensus a lot of times, I will say that. So in some sense, I think the discussion that we need to move on to, and I'm only expecting about a half an hour today, and we will keep, as there's time on agendas, I will keep putting this on agendas. So we will see this many times. Tackle this the same way we just tackled the main motion for the recommendations, which is we've got things that the Beyond the Charter memo talked about. Where do we want to slot them? Do we want to take action? If so, how do we want to take action? Is it referring to a committee, GOL, TSO, finance, where some of the places people did? Do we want to send it to the town manager or amend the manager's goals? Do we want to do something like hold a public dialogue session, or do we not want to do anything at all with the recommendation? Always an option. I would like to start with the items that really didn't have any consensus at all, so that we can get an idea maybe with discussion. They seem to be the ones that needed more discussion. And so those items, I'm just going to go down them and talk about them. And this is just the raw results, Athena. The top of the memo. Yeah, there, right there. That part that has, because that sort of summarizes the straw polls. The last set of bullet points where there was not really a lot of consensus, variety of response of what counselors thought we should do with these groups of items. I feel like that's the section that maybe needs a little more discussion before we slot them into any starts. So 30 minutes we will end this discussion at 9 and move on to the rest of our agenda. But let's start with the clarify the application process for boards and committees with the probability of making applications a public record. And the discussion is, it's the first bullet on the last page. It's the only one that ended up on page 1 on what you have on your screen, Kathy. No, it's the bullet above that on page 1. It's the last bullet on page 1. And so what are people's thoughts on what they would like done with this proposal or recommendation of the Charter Review Committee? Where would they like to see it go, if anywhere? And then I'll be taking notes on this for us to hopefully come up with a draft motion at some point. Counselor Ken Martin.
In order to just establish the parameters of the discussion, I guess my question would be, what are the options of where that could go? Like, is it something that we could just vote on as a council? Is it procedural? Is it like where? So we're saying it's not going to be a charter change. So where would it go?
So in the end, it could be a charter change, right? Because some of these, although that one was in a section of the Beyond the Charter memo that was further discussion, not a particular charter change, I believe. But Athena just scrolled up in this memo to some of the options. These are clearly not all of the options, but I didn't have a good spot to slot it into any of them based on the counselor responses to the straw poll.
But what I guess my question is, would it have to be a charter change, or is it something that could be addressed through like other rules that are not a major charter change?
Potentially, depending on what the wording is, it could be addressed through a council rule if it's relating to planning board and ZBA and other committees we appoint to. It could be something that we put in the town manager's goals if it's relating to appointments the town manager makes. It could potentially be rules we create for TSO as they deal with the request to approve the appointments the town manager makes. Because we have that authority in the charter is to approve his appointments. And so it could be dealt with as a process for making those recommendations on whether to approve those appointments that the town manager makes to boards and committees. So there's a lot of things that could be done with it.
So I put in my, when I responded to the poll, I think we should bring it to the council for a vote because that seemed the simplest, but I could be wrong. But anyway, that was my opinion.
Can I ask a clarifying question on that? Vote on what? Because the language here is clarify the process. So would the vote be, we want to clarify the process, or would the vote be on what?
So to clarify, yeah, so I would be in favor of holding a vote on whether or not to make the community activity forms public record should the applicant approve it being a public record. Because that seemed to be something that came up a lot. And it just seems like we should just make a decision on that.
Okay. Other thoughts on this portion of the Charter Review Committee's sort of comments on board and committee process? Counselor Ryan.
Just point out that a good portion of this is currently under discussion in TSO and will probably continue to some degree. So I think at some point, it's certainly possible that TSO could come back through a committee report and perhaps through recommendations on this issue. So it's already, in a sense, been discussed to some degree as part of what was put into the town manager goals. As something that TSO was asked to take a look into. So it's that discussion has already begun and will continue. And at some point, the committee will be reporting back on what it has learned.
Thank you. So does that mean that you are accepting comments and thoughts from other counselors that aren't on TSO and that they should send them to you as TSO chair if they have any on this matter?
Absolutely. Yes.
Thank you. Sam.
Thank you. Application process for boards and committees. Now, one of the options was add to the town manager goals and things, but we have council committees and boards and committees that are appointed by the town manager. Is there any distinction in those in this question item? Clarify the application process?
Andy, can you speak to whether with this item, the Charter Review Committee was referencing more the board and committee process for the town manager appointed boards and committees, or both the town manager and council appointed committees, or just the council appointed committees? Sorry to put you on the spot.
I think this is part of the sort of structural changes section, right? It's a comprehensive review of resident boards and committees and their role in town governance. So
No, it was a different one.
okay, so then it's not. So this is part of public engagement.
Yes.
And there were a series of things in public engagement that had to do with outreach or had to do with the ways residents can participate. And so part of that was, you know, more transparency, or the idea of, you know, clarifying how decisions get made, how people are informed about whether they got onto or not onto a committee. I think primarily this is focusing on town manager appointed committees, because I think that we have fairly specific processes for, you know, the finance committee that we have now, and council committees would have fairly specific rules, but the vast majority of the committees are appointed by the town manager. And so I think that's where the interest was, in making sure that people knew what was happening when they applied, and there was there was a certain interest in knowing who had applied and who didn't, who got it and who didn't. Although we've also heard from the resident advisory committee that a number of people have said that they wouldn't apply if it was public. So I think it's something that we'd have to discuss, but that was the issue. And I think it would primarily refer to town manager appointed committees.
Thank you. Sam?
Thank you. That's what I was thinking when I initially responded, but I was curious what others and the charter committee felt, and you've confirmed my understanding.
Okay. Councillor Breivik.
Just in terms of the options of where to send this and other things, in the final report, there was a recommendation for these, as Andy, I think, called them, the public engagement issues. So the items in that category to go to a transparency and public engagement working group. And I guess I'm just wondering if we decided against that formally, as I don't see it as an option in here, or if it's worth talking about as a group, whether that is something I mean, it feels a little difficult to just write off one of their two ways of, one of them was the public forum and one of them was this working group, to just not include that for discussion at all. I'm not sure where others landed on that.
So I think the working group was an option people could choose. I'm not sure I worded it as an actual working group, or I think I've just put refer to an ad hoc committee, and most people chose not to. So that's why it didn't end up on any of these options. But I did throw ad hoc committee on the options people could choose. So if we chose an ad hoc committee, we would have to create a charge for the ad hoc committee. We would have to then vote the charge. We would then have to appoint members to that committee. Actually, the manager would have to recruit and appoint members to the committee unless it was a council committee. And then the president would have to appoint members to the committee. So that could be a reason councilors didn't choose the ad hoc committee, was because that adds length to the process versus sending it to an already constituted committee. Just a potential reason why councilors didn't choose it.
And just to clarify, I'm not speaking for or against the creation of it, but just wondering if it was worth, because we are, again, there are a lot of items for our existing committees, if it were worth opening back up for discussion.
You may absolutely advocate one way or the other for it to open it up for discussion. Jennifer.
I agree with Councillor Cano Martin that If applicants to town manager appointed committees agree to have, their names be public, that they applied, that would help to, it would keep residents from who were not comfortable with being publicized as a matter of course, that they would still, hopefully be comfortable applying, but that it would make the process more transparent. I mean, we have council appointed committees, which are totally transparent, where the interviews are during a public meeting and the deliberation as we vote on the candidates to select, that's also public. So that is entirely public. And when residents apply to be on council appointed committees, they're, completely exposing themselves because again, even the deliberation and the vote is public. And then on the other extreme are the town manager appointed committees where you just know who's selected. So I would be comfortable, I think, with this being a rule change. If I don't know that needs to go to a vote, as a change to the charter, but I would very much support, Councillor Cano Martin's suggestion that if residents applying for town manager appointed committees agree to have their names be on record as having applied, and if we could do that in the most expeditious way possible, which might be a rules of procedure change, I would support that. Thank you.
So I'm going to try and summarize yours
Yeah.
before I move on, in a way that I think we could do it. And then let me know if that's your idea. You would support sort of a rule change or a policy change. We have currently a policy on council appointed multi-member bodies and how to make recommendations. Maybe there would be a policy change or an adoption of a council policy or rule that says TSO gets to learn the names of all applicants who have agreed to have their names made public, as well as the total number of applications received for any appointment the manager is asking the council to approve. Is that sort of your idea?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just make sure I wrote it down in a way that you agree with. Okay. We've got Anna, because I think Anna has not spoken yet, and then we'll go back to Andy and Councillor Cano Martin.
Thank you. First off, I agree total applications received is a helpful metric. I'm trying to understand to what end, like what is the purpose? And I think that we use the word transparency a lot, and I always want to know, what does transparency look like when it's operationalized? And, again, understanding the names of the applicants, or understanding the names of the applicants who said that their names could be released to the public. I want to hear more about what that helps us to do, kind of to what end. What information does that give us that is helpful, or give the public that is helpful to know, and why? And I am concerned, I think in part of me thinks that the idea of someone saying, okay, yes, you can publicize my name is helpful because it's giving them that agency. And on the other hand, it kind of feels like it might make it feel less transparent, because then there's a pool where half of the people are known and half the people might not be known. And it feels worse to me in some senses, even though I agree that the agency there is important. I generally don't support this part. I also, folks can submit a CAF, and CAFs are private for planning board and finance committee. It's not until they go through the SOI process that their names are known. So I'm struggling with this one, but I really would like to hear more about how this actually helps with transparency, and what, not just saying, yes, more information, but like, how would that information actually be used? Because what I worry about is we do hear from community members who withdraw from pools after they hear some of the discourse that suddenly occurs around them when they're just trying to do some support in their community. And so I worry about that a little. I worry about folks campaigning for others who simply want to serve on a committee. Yeah, I'd like to hear more from the folks who are advocating for this about what it actually helps them to do.
Thank you. I'm going to keep in mind that we have used 13 minutes of the half an hour I've allotted today, and we're still on the first one. And this is where are we sending stuff? This is a good discussion. I'm not trying to shut it down, but I'm getting an idea from this discussion that putting this in a refer to GOL or TSO might be sort of the best option to continue this discussion, but Andy, oh wait, Pam has not spoken yet. So Pam and then Andy, then Counselor Keno Martin, and then Jennifer again, and then we're gonna move on to the next item. Sorry.
Thank you. It does feel like this really needs some attention. And I think George was trying to say TSO has this topic on its plate. And I think over the next couple of meetings is expecting to talk in greater detail about this also in coordination with Angela Mills, who is a community participation officer. So I would say for the time being, perhaps it would be comfortable to let TSO whack through the weeds a little bit and understanding what has been said. There is, I would say, strong interest in the community to knowing who's put their name in and then finally who comes out as the appointee. It just seems like a vacuum that is hard to track.
Okay, thank you. Andy.
Yeah, I think that we're in the air traffic control part of this discussion, and to that end, you know, these were sort of clumped in the reports in sort of two broad boxes. One was structural changes, and it was big things that are sort of, you know, we can't really change it without a charter commission for a lot of them, but things that I think the committee felt like the community might benefit from some discussion. And then the second big box is the public engagement issues. And that's where there was a discussion of a transparency and public engagement working group, but the following sentence says this could entail referring to an existing committee or creating a new ad hoc working group. So I guess I would also note that TSO used to do a lot of transportation work, and it's no longer doing that. And so the town services and outreach, the outreach section is an increasing the important part of TSO's work. So there's a number of public engagement issues here that have to do with outreach, or could be grouped under the heading of communication. So my default in this section would be to say if it has to do with outreach or communication or understanding how government works, that maybe a lot of that stuff could go to TSO in its outreach piece.
Thank you. Counselor Ken, before I go to Counselor Keno Martin, I just want to acknowledge that Counselor Walker has rejoined us. Can you hear us, Counselor Walker?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Keno Martin.
Yes, I just wanted to respond to Anna's question about how this would help us to know who applied for these, the town manager appointed committees and boards and so forth. I think it helps us and the public because the way it is currently on those particular committees where they are a town manager appointment, we as a council have no idea who else applied. And so the fact that that is then brought to us for a vote, we're voting without having really any information whatsoever. And I find it hard to cast a meaningful vote for somebody if I don't know who else was in the running or what the factors were of making that decision. And it's often on a consent agenda. And that by no means does that mean that I think that any of these people are unworthy or a bad choice. And so I, would not want to necessarily argue against somebody's appointment, but if I don't know who else has applied, then I have no option but to just endorse the person that was nominated, and that essentially means my vote is meaningless, and so are the other votes of the council because we don't know who else applied, and we're not going to vote somebody down just for the sake of voting somebody down. I mean, I can't imagine there would be an egregious case where somebody was appointed that had, a red flag or reason they shouldn't be appointed. So that is the reason that I think that we and the public should have that information.
Thank you. Jennifer.
I agree, concur with everything Councillor Keno Martin just said. I could amend the language as you wrote it down before, Counselor Haneke, to say that members of the public who interview for a town manager appointed position. And I think that would be very helpful to TSO to know who it interviewed. So if an applicant submits a CAF and then withdraws, there's no reason we need to know that, but it would be helpful. This is my second, round on TSO, and it does have the feeling of rubber stamping the recommendations because we don't know who has applied, who was interviewed for the committees that the town manager is appointing and recommending candidates. And I have heard from members of the public who have themselves interviewed for committees and, more than one committee and have never been appointed, that they would like that to be transparent to the community. So those are the reasons why I support that when the recommendations go to TSO for candidates who have interviewed and completed the application process, that TSO, and then by virtue of that, the council and the community know who interviewed for the town manager appointed committees.
Thank you
Thank
both
you.
for explaining.
We're going to move on. I'm going to skip a couple and talk up and just summarize maybe two others that are in this list, and so that maybe we can get through sort of three of them. It sounds like with the one discussion we just had, TSO is dealing with a little bit right now. There might need to be a further discussion, and when we move through some of these, that might be at TSO or at GOL. There's two others on this list that seem to potentially fall into the same sort of category that we just discussed, and I want to see if that is how counselors feel, and that is the community participation officer that is listed here. I obviously shorthanded what was in the report, and the comprehensive review of the roles, types, capacities, and expectations for resident committees in town government in order to lessen the burden on town staff, which had a bullet point that I forgot to indent that says this item is very similar to a town manager goal for the calendar year. And I think that's the one that Andy was referring to in the report. So given the discussion we just had on application process, do those two other items also seem like at this point that they might fit well within what TSO is doing now? And as we come back, maybe keeping it there or with the GOL at some point in terms of slotting it into those, given the conversation we just had. Counselor Ryan.
So as chair of TSO, again, I can make it clear to the council that we are actually beginning a comprehensive review, as stated here, based on the town manager goals, but also based on this charter proposal. So it's actually under process at this moment. And we, of course, are in conversation and will continue to be in conversation with the one and only current community participation officer, Angela Mills. These are currently being taken up by TSO.
Thank you. Any other thoughts on those? We've got about 8 minutes left. We're going to talk about the greater level of detail in budget documents. There was no real consensus on what to do with this one either. Is there any comments people would like to make on that? Kathy?
A couple comments. One, we are in trying to plan finance committee work. I've penciled it in for a July discussion. To the extent to when that wording is very large and broad. So one of the issues is what can be done with the addition systems we have without a lot of staff extra work in terms of, buying expensive computer packages that massage the data in different ways. So what can our current system yield? And when we say greater detail, what is the detail we want? So I think that's the kind of discussion we'd like to have, not just about the budget, but one of the things, Mandy, when you were on finance, you observed that when we get the quarterly reports, could we break it out to the payroll line and the expense account? So we would see whether payroll is doing fine, but expenses running over. And Northampton does that in their quarterly reports. So I don't know whether their financial system makes it easy to do or not. So I think that's would be a good discussion to have it be interactive. What do people want or mean by greater detail? Is it tables? I love tables, you know, and so if the tables can be easily generated, that'd be great. So I think it's a good topic for finance with everyone on the council trying to say, what is it that they're missing? You know, what else would they like to see, and get that sent as questions, you know, with specific examples. Like I go to look for it here and I can't find it there, and I'm looking for a table. But the more specific, the better, because I don't think we want to know. I mean, you should see some of the tables we're getting in JCPC right now on exactly how much gasoline each car has used, you know, so some of this is in budgets end of the year, but so it would be good to get a broader list of when you're opening a quarterly report or when you're ultimately opening the budget document. And I would say in schools, there are things I can't find in the school budgets also. So it is, are we talking just about town final budget? So my recommendation would be send it to finance, have us say it's going to be whatever, a July meeting, we'll focus on it, but have everybody send in what do they mean, but what is it they're missing? You know, so we have a composite of a larger set of questions.
So what I heard from that is, if it's not something, if you want to see something and you haven't seen it in the budget documents, let the finance chair know that they're already planning on a discussion like this as part of their annual discussions, whether or not we've acted on this particular item in this Beyond the Charter. Doesn't mean we won't act on this item as we get through things, but start sending your thoughts to them. Any other thoughts on that one based on that comment? Andy?
What I heard was send it to the finance committee. So let's do it. Let's do that.
That too, but for now, they're planning that discussion, even if we haven't acted on this big group of things yet.
But I would say put it in that category.
It's going to happen. And what I'm being specific, when people say this, I say, what is it you're missing? You know, are you looking for a table at the end of a document? And and then we'll figure out, would that be fairly easy? Because some of it is a lot of work and some of it is just changing a system and it can produce it. Yeah.
Seeing no further discussion, we have about 4 minutes. So I'm going to move to continued advocacy for programs listed in Charter's section 1010, 1011, and 1012. For those that haven't looked at the charter recently, one of them is the non-resident voters. One of them is the participatory budgeting, and the other is a whole host of things that we were supposed to look at early on. That we did. Participatory budgeting was one of them, but I'm going to pull out the charter so I don't miss anything.
You meant ranked choice voting?
Ranked choice voting was one. Yeah, so it was ranked choice voting. It was participatory budgeting commission, and that was topics for study. And the 3 topics for studies was a position for the ADA coordinator, permitting non-citizens to vote in town elections and to seek and hold town elective office, and lowering the voting age for town elections. For those that haven't been following special acts, the town has actually, council has requested a special act for the non-citizens voting in town elections. That special act in my report was just sent to study. So it will not be acted on this term, and we've already asked about that, but it has been something we've been pursuing. Participatory budgeting, there was a commission created, they pursued it. They made a recommendation. I think we adopted their recommendation when that recommendation came to us. And ranked choice voting has been a special act for the last 6 years, 7 years. And it was also just sent to study again. So 2 of our 3 special acts, again, reported in, actually it might, I think it was in this, it was in Paul's report. I think it was in my report too. Maybe it didn't make your report, but I think it made mine, that those last week were sent to committee for study, which basically means they were tabled for the session. So thoughts on continuing advocacy for those programs at this point? Kathy?
Yeah, I just wanted to say for the people who haven't been with the council since its inception, I was on the Participatory Budget Commission, and we worked long and hard on a report. It would be good for everyone to get a copy of it, because we looked at all the different, usually very large cities that have this and can carve out $1 million and say, let's just have people vote on it. And we tried to find some smaller municipalities that had done something. And we actually found one in Canada, but the answer was not a lot. But that report was pretty rich in trying to search for what we have and look at where there are some opportunities already in town. For example, we have the resident capital proposal that can come to the JCPC. And we also have CPAC where resident proposals. So it's a longish report, but it might be good, Mandy, just to put it in a packet or have Athena point people to it, because it had a lot of background information that we spent, did we spend a year on it? I don't know. Lynn required me to go on it as a finance committee member. So I know we spent a lot of time on it.
So I guess the question is, Counselor Kendall Martin.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my question. Is the commission was local to Amherst, you said?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, I would love to see that. And then, I guess there's.
And what I said wasn't a council, it had a counselor on it only. It was a bunch of other people too.
Yeah, we'll send it out.
Yeah, and then I guess my other question is, what would continued advocacy look like since it seems to be so stalled? Do we want to change tactics? Like, is there like state legislation that we could be supporting? Like, it feels just like this. I mean, these are all things I support and I think are great ideas, but maybe is it time for like a change in tactic?
So I believe both of them, or at least the RCV there is state legislation out there for opting in. It is filed every legislative session. There is also, we are not the only RCV special act bill that is filed every session. I don't know how many there are, but there are at least 10, I think, if not more. And they keep getting sent to study as well as everything. So I know Rep. Dom indicated maybe we do have to take a different tact, so we might want to discuss that at some point, and maybe that's a GOL discussion, maybe that's a council discussion. I think it's certainly a discussion that I and Councillor Walker will bring up at our monthly meetings with Representative Dom and Senator Comfort to see if they have, in conversations with their colleagues, any ideas at how we can approach that differently, because we haven't had success. I think there are also state legislation, I can't be sure on this one because I haven't gone to the hearings for the non-citizen voting special act, but I think there might be state legislation for opting into that too for town elections. I could be wrong though, so it might be another one where we just have to, and I know there are other towns that have requested that one too, special acts. So we're not alone in frustration on sending to study. Pam.
Since the legislature will be considering, we hope, in a timely manner, our 20 items at some point, can we slip in 21 and 22 as being ranked choice voting and non-citizen voting? These are things that would help our government function more smoothly, and we would appreciate having the legislature look at it as a whole package, as a way to get around the ice jam.
I will make a note of that. Anna.
Yeah, my comment's very similar to Pam's. I think one of the things that I remember Rep. Dom saying a while back was that there was one pretty key difference in the cities who have gotten specifically ranked choice voting passed via their charter, such as East Hampton, which is that they declared that it would be so in their charter. And we have it, as we're going to study really hard what it would take to do this. And so what I worry about is missing the opportunity right now where we are fine tooth combing our charter and proposing changes and missing the opportunity to put this declarative statement in of saying we will implement ranked choice voting. And I think that we should discuss that to go along with our charter changes.
So it could be a discussion, as I think I recently looked at the special act, wondering whether we could just essentially adopt the language that would become the bylaw as part of Article 5. It is
Right.
something we could consider. If we wanted to. That doesn't mean the state legislature would approve it, or
Mhm.
that if they did, they wouldn't ask us to send it to the ballot. Ranked choice voting, when it was on the ballot, passed overwhelmingly in this
Right.
town, so I wouldn't be concerned necessarily about if the legislature approved it as long as it was on a town ballot, but I can imagine that they wouldn't do it without that. But we could also potentially try that as a 43B, just straight up 43B amendment process too,
Yeah,
without a
that would be
special
great.
act.
I would support that as well.
And I think I know myself and Lynn, what we haven't gotten to and beyond the charter is other things counselors want to consider. And I know both Lynn and I were on that. Let's see if we just want to try that as a 43B instead of a special act at this point.
Absolutely. I think I would rather do that than say, just continued advocacy. I think we have done a lot of advocacy. I'd like to see us just move forward on the change in any way we can. And thank you, and Lynn, for being on it.
Okay. Andy and then Counselor Brevick, and then we're going to move on to the next item on our agenda.
Yeah, on these several items, I'm strongly in support of having non-citizen voters in local elections. And I think that's been, unfortunately, we've been trying it since town meeting days and it hasn't gotten through the state. So, but it may be we may be in a time where that may be more popular. And I think that there could be some statewide advocacy for that. On ranked choice voting, I was very strongly in support of it as a member of the Charter Commission, but in thinking about it since then, I think it's a lot easier to implement when you are voting for a governor or a senator or a single position. And I think with our degree of complexity as counselors, where we have 5 districts and then 3 at-large counselors, I worry a little bit about the complexity of, we already have like ballots that have 25, candidates on them. And I think if we were trying to do ranked choice voting for 13 members divided between district reps and at-large reps, I worry about people not being able to understand it. So I'm not quite as sanguine about ranked choice voting for the council as I would be for a governor or a senator. And I think, Maine has ranked choice voting, and I think it's for those types of single person who's being elected. And I think that tends to help people, moderate and use their second choices to come to the center. I just don't know what would happen. I can envision entropy if we were trying to vote for 13 people in different types of districts in ranked choice fashion. So I'm not quite sure how that would work.
Thank you. Counselor Brevick?
More of just a process question. I'm strongly in favor of trying to incorporate these items into the existing process if we can. I think that sounds really smart, and I think moving quickly, if we can, makes sense. What would that look like? So then we would then have 5 additional items, and hearing from Andy, and I'm sure others have different thoughts on these, seeing how the rest of this has gone, these discussions can be long and, not to, that's a good thing, but just wondering what that would look like if we wanted to incorporate, add 5 additional items into this process.
So I think it would depend on whether we were adding all 5. There were 5 items from 10, 10, 11, and 12. One of them was an ADA coordinator. That's not really a charter change thing. At least I'm not sure it would be. I guess you could make it one as a position, but two of the remaining 4 have active special acts, although they're in they're sent to committee now, so how active are they? But 2 of them, we as council have tried to get through on special acts. So those would be easier to potentially move quickly from that language to either additional special act or send to KP Law and say, we want to try and put these directly in the charter, send us the 43B language to somehow implement these special acts and the language in them as 43B. The other 2, participatory budgeting, we'll send that report out. Not as easy for a charter change per se, and then the lowering the age for voting in town elections has never been a special act. It's never been proposed as one, but I can imagine it might be similar to the language for the non-citizen voting if we wanted to move forward with that as a 43B change. If people are looking to do that now, what I can do is try and craft a motion to put on a future agenda to at least get this referred somewhere that we can debate for those. And provide the special act language that we've already sent to the legislatures.
And just clarifying too, just for historical context, so then it sounds like we've already as a council prior to voted on those two, the two that went to special act. So then maybe we don't want to I don't know how people feel who were part of the initial process of determining that and getting it to move forward into a special act to then bring it back to rehash it.
Well, so if I were to put a motion based on this conversation, if I were to put a motion on the motion sheet, I would basically, given the motion we just voted for the other part of the Charter Review Committee's recommendation, it would look similar to that, but it would include the special acts that we filed and basically say, send to KP Law to turn these two special acts into charter change language in Article 5, say, or whatever article makes the most sense to put it in, and using the 43B process. But I'd sort of base it in the special acts that we've already filed. Does that make sense? Okay. Kathy?
I don't know enough about what bundling does or doesn't do. I think people are thinking maybe it draws attention to the things that have been languishing, and I'm not sure that's true. And I just want to second Andy's opinion that everyone should go home and really look at our 13 ballots that we have now and think of ranked choice voting, because one of the things that people, when they've studied it in complicated other situations, is people don't vote. They stay away. They can't understand the ballots. And that wasn't the intended purpose of it, but New York had some pretty disappointing things, and that you have to do 1, 2, 3. And if you like two people the most and you put 1 in 1, your ballot gets thrown out. I mean, so it's sort of an education, like how to fill out a ballot. You can't have, you can't say, I like these two people best and I don't like number 3. You still have to do, so there's been some interesting, unexpected consequences in a few places, but it has worked very well in a governor-senator race when you've got a couple candidates splitting the vote that are similar to have it congeal. So I just think it works differently when you have what we've got.
Thank you. 2 more, and then we are going to move on to the next item on our agenda because this is not the end of the discussion on this item. Anna.
Yeah, I had lowered my hand and was just going to email Andy some information that I had seen about other communities that do use ranked choice voting for local elections, but I'm putting it back up because now I heard 2 comments. So I do think that it's worth folks who are speaking out about the complexity of ranked choice voting in local elections, specifically municipal elections. I would encourage us to look at other communities, especially East Hampton and Cambridge, who have utilized Cambridge for a long time. And I know that there are slight differences. I'm not comparing apples to apples. However, I do think that the fact that those communities are advocating so strongly for this is something that we should pay attention to. And I hope that we will continue to discuss this and that we will speak to those communities. And I'm sure the Charter Commission did, or I hope that they did, but the Charter Review Commission, excuse me. But I don't think that we should write it off. I think that this has a lot of useful practice in municipal elections. And as we've seen, our community has supported it overwhelmingly. And I would love to see us see that vision through.
Thank you. Councilor Kendall Martin.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo what Anna said. And then one additional thing I'll add is that although we do have 13 counselors, any individual ballot will only have at-large and then their district. So the number of candidates you'll be seeing would still be the same. You would just have to learn how to put a numerical rank instead of an X. So I think it's the same educational process either way. And I think for all the reasons that have been stated, I think we should do that educational process.
Thanks. Thank you. This was a great discussion. We started it at for our start of 42 minutes. We're gonna keep having, because we have a lot more to discuss on what to do with. And as we go through, I'll start trying to draft motions for us to air traffic things or maybe deal with stuff directly based on the conversations. We're going to move on to item 8E. This was pulled off the consent agenda. I'm going to make the motion and then we'll have a discussion on it. The motion is to authorize the president to sign and submit testimony on behalf of the town council to the Joint Committee on Ways and Means regarding the governor's FY27 budget. Is there a second?
Second.
Pam Rooney seconds that. So I have a draft in the folder, in the file. I revised that draft on Sunday based on information I received at the MMA legislative breakfast and some comments I had already received. Because I felt that information was important to include in this testimony. In particular, the biggest one for me was that the rural aid House 2 includes an expansion of what districts would be available to would be eligible to receive the rural aid, while at the same time barely increasing the amount of rural aid. And that expansion was to include charter collaboratives and vocational schools, some of which already receive money, rural aid indirectly through the tuition that the schools that get rural aid pay to those schools. So that was the one that I heard at the MMA legislative breakfast that I thought I'd add as the council, given what I'd heard in terms of council on charter school funding and everything and rural aid, that was important to put in the letter. So that was the bigger change. There was some other changes about, I think, circuit breaker and transportation funding. But as I said, I'll amend as people want. We can talk about some of it now. It's hard to do full drafting in a meeting, which is why I ask that you send me comments, but I will love to hear comments now too. So I believe, Councillor Breivik, you're the one that pulled this off of consent. So I'm presuming you have a couple comments. So I'll start with you.
I have a question and a couple comments.
Sure.
If we send you changes, would you then incorporate them into the memo and then send out for our approval? And what would then the approval of this look like after that?
So the motion that's on the floor is to just allow me to do this on behalf of the council. So we're not voting on the letter technically. What I can say is I will try to incorporate as many comments as I can because it is a counselor thing, except sometimes the comments are contradictory. So I'll get some comments from one counselor and some from another, and you can't do both. Number one. Number two, as I told someone else who already submitted comments, a finance committee member, that I would focus this on our town and our school districts. So any comments that relate to other towns in our regional school are not something I would be making a choice to incorporate into a council submission. Does that make sense? So I would also be using my judgment as, is this something the whole council I think would support since it's on behalf of the council? And so you'll see in there some of the comments that I received from a finance committee member were not incorporated, at least initially in. I expect to get more comments from that finance committee member, but I'd also be using my judgment, but I would try to incorporate as much as possible into the letter. Does that make sense?
You're saying you wouldn't include items that would advocate for things that would benefit the regional schools? Only
No,
that would...
the region I would, but for example, if someone requested a change that says, and Pelham needs X amount of money, I would not incorporate the Pelham needs X amount of money because that's not what we're here for. But if it's the region needs X amount or X change, yes. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. Thank you. And then can I just make one other comment? It's related to the, these are sort of new terms to me, the RMV marking process being included in this memo. And I'm just wondering if we can possibly separate this out, if that, and this whole mechanism is new to me as well. So I feel like this specifically is something that I'm not sure that I support And having just received the memo, did not have enough time to fully research it. I am wondering if it's possible to lobby on this separately to give counselors the option to opt out of this piece specifically. This system, the RMV marking system, seems to strikes me as, and again, I would appreciate more time to research it, but strikes me as a system like so many others that would disproportionately impact people of color in some ways, low-income people in other ways, and that it seems like there are other options for enforcing the collection of excise taxes that are less punitive and dangerous to the more vulnerable members of our community. And I think because of that, it warrants just a little more thought before we sign on to this as a full body.
So I would be happy to take a poll of what people think about it. I included this because it is one of the items that the MMA has asked us to advocate to oppose. So I'm just saying it's been in their legislative packet to oppose. So it is in House 2, which means if we are writing a letter about House 2, then it should be included in the letter about House 2 if the council supports the opposition. I will say that, but it's part of the governor's budget bill. It's an outside section. It's not a direct funding, but it is part of that bill. If you want a little bit more explanation, I can explain a little bit more of what's proposed regarding RMV marking.
Sure, and I guess just wondering, is it possible to have a letter come from the full council and a letter come from some counselors?
Any counselor can send their own testimony completely. Yes.
We took it off and you still.
Yes. Any counselor can send whatever testimony they want to the House Ways and Means. Or
So then I would advocate for removing it in this instance.
do you want an explanation of what it is? Okay. So right now, if a person does not pay their motor vehicle excise taxes, parking tickets, but particularly the motor vehicle excise tax is the one I reference here. A town has the ability to essentially flag that person's driver's license. And when their license or any vehicle they own comes up for renewal, they are not able to renew it until those items are paid. The provision that the governor has filed has proposed changing that system from flagging it the way it is flagged now in the RMV system to flagging it in a different system or doing something in a different system that already exists through a process that exists at the state level in a different manner. So it wouldn't be, and I didn't recognize that particular process, so I can't talk about what that process is, but it would still have the towns doing something at the state level and filing something at the state level regarding people who have not paid those bills. But it would not be through the RMV renewal process. It is my understanding that Senator Comerford is a supporter of changing the system. So if you want more information about her support for removing it from RMV to this other system that currently exists for other things, I guess, I'd say reach out to her because I can't give you any better explanation than what I just gave, which is what came from the MMA legislative breakfast. So but what they are concerned about is, for example, excise taxes are 2% of our entire budget. We receive 2% of our entire budget from excise taxes. And so they're concerned, the MMA's particular concern is that changing this process would harm towns from being able to receive revenue on a consistent basis that they use to fund operations and capital. So that was why they were asking us to oppose it. I'm happy to take a straw poll as to whether people want to leave this in or take that out. Councillor Kendall Martin.
I was just going to let you take a straw poll because I was going to talk about something else.
Okay. Anyone else want to talk about this before I take the straw poll?
I do.
Anna.
So I think what I'm hearing, Mandy, is that the proposed change, and I'm looking at the budget memos now, but this proposed change doesn't take away flagging overall. It just moves it to a new system. So the flagging would still occur. right? And I think I'm curious if that is true. Jill,
So,
I-
yeah.
go ahead.
I
And I
think
guess
what
my
the concern is, if it's not flagged on the RMV licenses and registration and it's moved to a different collection system, then it won't be as easily collectible because people want to keep their licenses valid when they go to renew them. And so when they can't renew them until they've paid these outstanding excise taxes, they pay them. And I think the MMA's concern is that moving to a different system that doesn't attach it to something people want to keep active will mean more people will not pay.
Mhm.
Does that make sense? I think that's
I
the
think so.
MMA's.
I think it's hard without knowing more details about the new system and about the possible negative impacts of that to fairly equate them. So I think that's what I'm struggling with right now. And I guess I'm curious about the timing of the necessary timing of this, if there's a way for us to get more information about the possible impacts of the new system prior to advocating for it or not.
I can attempt to, but testimonies due next Monday.
Thank you. That was the information.
So-
No, that was the information I was looking for. Okay.
Yeah.
I will keep thinking on it while other people talk. Thank you.
Pam,
In a similar vein, do we have a sense of what percent of our excise tax is being skirted around and not being paid?
I'd look to Paul on that.
Because of the markings, the ability to mark, we get over 90%, I believe, of payment for our excise tax. So if you lessen the ability to compel people to pay, then there'd be a lower income coming into the town.
So I will take a straw poll on whether to leave this section in or out. We're gonna do that straw poll like we've done straw polls before.
Can I respond just very
sure.
quickly? I'm
Sure.
No,
Yeah, no, I totally get it. And I think I missed Kathy had something else. You're just holding on something else. Yeah, so.
But I think my main
Counselor Brown.
position is the tying of it to the ability of for somebody to renew their license or something that can really obstruct their ability to work and get paid and I don't think we know necessarily how much of that 90% is because of this or not. So we don't have that information really, which is I think okay to not have that right in this moment. And then just echoing Anna's concerns about, not really having enough information to make a call. But I think that is this moving it from one system to another is the key, and the key that it's currently in a system that is dangerous because it is connected to people's potential livelihoods.
Got it. Straw poll, we're going to do the straw poll, so I'm gonna ask Kathy to lower her hand for now, because the straw poll, I'll recognize you right after the straw poll, but we're gonna use the hand raising function for the straw poll like we've done in the past for straw polls, and then I will read the hands out so that people know where they are. So if you are in favor of keeping keeping this paragraph about RMV marking in the testimony from the council, raise your hand in the Zoom application now. We have 3 hands, Haneke, Ryan, and Griesemer. If you are opposed, if you would like this section deleted from the proposed council testimony submission, please raise your hand now. We have, it looks like 8 hands, Lord, Breivik, Rooney, Churchill, Walker, Devlin Gauthier, Cano Martin, and Taub. So it will be removed. Oh, sorry, are there any abstentions?
I have no vote.
Okay,
I didn't vote either because I'm willing to say don't jeopardize what we've got now, but I don't think I know enough to keep. And I also think this is a smaller issue and there are a lot of big ones. So I'd rather focus on the big ones.
okay, no, that's fine. So I promised I would recognize Kathy next. Kathy, comments?
Okay, so I have two, and I will give you some wording. There were a couple places, if you wouldn't mind sharing the Word version, maybe it's already in our packet, leading in stronger, but I think we should talk about fair share. Fair share is in the governor's budget, it's about 2.5 billion. The current year, I'm going to be a little off on the numbers, but they found another 1.5 billion from FY25, and they're putting most of the transportation into the MBTA and very little into roads. So I would like to make a strong statement about Amherst roads and that we don't get paid by one of the major sources of cars and trucks, but also all of Western Mass, what winter has done to our roads and crumbling, that far more should go into roads and Chapter 90. It's a really unequal. So that's one point about fair share. The other is they're not putting enough in K through 12. And just really talk about more of that money going in for K through 12. And I can't give a specific number on that. So I want to make a specific paragraph about the fair share money and the education side of it and the road side, and come in tough on the roads. And Mandy, I know you don't normally do this in testimony, but a picture of any road with the number of potholes would be, one picture would help a lot with this, is, just say, here's a picture, and we could point out some roads. Yeah.
You're D1, send me a picture of Summer Street.
Yes. Yep. No, Summer Street's turning into dirt right now, exactly. So that's one. And then the other, and this one is, I'm a little less sure of, Charter, you already mentioned rural aid. I would make a strong statement of go all the way up to 60 million and don't include new recipients of that. Really allocate that to the regions, such as our regional school. It would make a difference in other regions. And then advocating for, they're talking about fully funding the circuit breaker. I'm not sure, I have to look at the way the governor's bill is written, but there are two parts of it. One is the education part and one is transportation. And the transportation line has bumped around a lot, and making sure they do it at 75%. So I'll send some of these to you on that one. And then the other big one for us is charter. So charter, aside from not taking rural aid money for charter schools, would be, can we, in this, and I don't know how this gets set, but right now charter reimburses you 100% the first year the student leaves, 60% and then 40 and then nothing. Can we go 100, 80, 60, 40, 40 and make it span 4 years, which allows a much bigger time for schools to adjust, and that 100 to 60 is a big drop off and it's very uncertain. So I can send the wording to this, and just so everyone knows right now, our region and elementary school together have a net a little over 3 million that we're sending to charter. So this is a big deal for us, that if we could get at least some relief on those first 4 years, it would be a lot of money.
So you asked about a Word version. I sent, I believe, the Word version on Sunday morning. So you
Okay,
can send
yeah,
that one back to
so
me
I'll try to make it easy by writing some of this up, but I tend to write with some bullets, just so I can make it very clear what the ask is.
Yep. This is written testimony, so there is no limit on the written testimony. Counselor Kendall Martin.
Yeah, so I wanted to speak on the school funding piece of this as well, and I support Kathy's contributions. I think those are all really important, and just wanted to add about my understanding about the circuit breaker program, which I'm just learning myself, but it sounds like the advocacy would be that we would like the state to reimburse 90% after we hit that, that limit of what we would be expected to spend on a given student. And that the cost of special ed has been really going up significantly. And we do have, some kids that are being placed in, other programs. And then there's transportation for those programs, and that's very expensive. So sometimes the transportation itself is, the same cost as the placement. And so that would give us some relief in terms of that spending. And then, so another couple things to add would be asking the state to fund 95% of the regional school transportation. I'll send this to you, Mandy Jo. And you might have received it already. And begin to reimburse the non-regional districts for transportation costs. The Commonwealth used to do it, has not done it in over 2 decades, and that would help us because transportation costs are really going up. And then finally, the minimum aid per student, increase that to 500 per student. And so we are a hold harmless district, which means we get the minimum aid and it only goes up $75 per pupil per year, which is really not enough, obviously. And so this recommendation of 500 per student comes out of the Project 211 Coalition, which is the 211 municipalities that are hold harmless districts in the state, which is now the majority. And so I think that we should match what they're asking for since we're part of that 211 and inflation is making all of our costs go up. So adding $75 a year is not super helpful. So to make up for this really low amount in the past, that's why we're asking for such a large increase to 500.
Can I ask a question? So the transportation, regional school transportation was added on Sunday morning. So please read that paragraph and see if you want to make changes to that, including the non-regional school transportation part. That's all part of the same paragraph that was added. Question on the circuit breaker, and it's similar question I think I similarly have for Kathy on the charter reimbursement. Do we know whether the 75% that is currently done is a result of lack of funding, or is it a result of state law that says it's going to be 75% versus 90? Do we know? And same with the charter school, because I think that makes a difference in how we word things. If it's because they haven't funded it enough, that's an easy thing to say, fund it more so that we can get up to that. But if it's they're funding it enough, fully funding because state law is 75, that's a different right. You know, that's a different way of wording things. So it would be good to know if we could find that.
That's right. So one of the issues, just on that, one of the issues is it's supposed to be 75% and the benchmark right now is 52,000, but the state hasn't been fully paying the 75%. So the governor's budget says pay what we're supposed to be paying, which is a good starting point. That threshold it used to go up as a multiple, now it's going up as a percentage, which has helped. Because otherwise it would be much higher. But there are 2 separate columns. Mandy, I can just send you what's happened on this because the transportation one is transportation for students that are out of district. Right. And that's the really expensive one. And that's bounced all over. And the most recent year it went up to 75%, but the year before that it was at like 50 or 20%, you know, so at least that one asking for 100 on it because you're already paying a lion's share of those costs for the kids. But in any case, I'll just send you, and what I don't know is the question you asked, is it in a larger piece of legislation? And it's been an appropriation rather than a requirement. So the state hasn't even been doing what they were supposed to be doing.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Lynn and then Councillor Brevik.
The issue on charter schools is the legislation. And that's where the problem for us in Massachusetts is we have never had legislation that fully supports state funding for charter schools. And it was attempted last year and failed. And the charter school lobby is very strong.
As we can see from the governor's proposed expansion of rural school aid to go to them. Councillor Brevik.
I lowered my hand because most of the points I wanted to make were already made. I'm going to just review the new draft and send you maybe some additional points, but yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, so it looks like no other comments are here. I have been taking notes within my draft. Please send me any comments, wording. I would love more than comments. I would love proposed wording because I'm not necessarily the greatest at coming up with the wording. So especially since many of you are more knowledgeable at some of these nuances than I am. The more specific we can make it as to how it affects Amherst, you'll notice I tried to put in there what our budget numbers were, what our increases were. The more specific we can put in, the better the testimony is, because the examples are really what helps. So feel free to mark up the draft any way you want. I will do my best to incorporate as much of it as possible in that. Kathy and then Jennifer, and then we're going to vote on the motion.
So I was just going to make a quick comment. When Amber said ask for, you've right now got minimum aid at at least 150. If you say 150 and even better, 500, take it out of fair share. So that's where the fair share education money, so you can have a fair share section. So I'll try to give you a way of linking the two, of finding a source for that money.
Okay. Thank you. Jennifer.
No, I just wanted to thank you for drafting the testimony and letting us have input. That was a lot to do.
I think given that it would be coming from the council as a whole, that's why. And I will tell you, I used a template from the MMA and and I looked at the template from project 211, 211, tried to merge them kind of. Sort of. So that's where I started, and then I tried to do other things. Andy, and then we're voting.
Yeah. I recognize a lot of the language from MMA, and I thought the discussion about removing the one section that was that was sort of complicated was good, but this is a statement that's coming from the council, and you're basically going to get a bunch of individuals sending you their individual ideas. I don't know quite how we deal with that, but I think most of the ideas that I've heard are good. But I mean, I certainly support what Kathy was saying. I just don't know, whether we, should it be 500? What should we do about charter schools? I mean, I have some ideas about what we should do about charter schools, and they should all be state funded, but how far do we go in saying this is from the council rather than this is from the president of the council based on information that has come from individuals, and they are free to send their ideas separately? I don't know exactly how to handle that.
So I think that's why we provide a draft, so that people can see what is likely to be sent. It's why we had this conversation about what people might want to add, why I took the straw poll if someone wanted to delete something, if someone is not comfortable with the conversation, any of the points that have been made. We can straw poll any of those points. There's also, I will admit, there's an element of trust that you have to rely on me to use my best judgment in the comments that come in on what I believe the council as a whole supports, which may not actually be what I support. I will be trying to consider it as a council as a whole. And I may send out, and if I get comments really early, I can send out another draft on Wednesday and say, here's the next draft. Let me know if there's any issues with it. We do have a deadline. It's also why we're voting on whether to authorize me to do so. If I'm not authorized, I don't send it. I can send my own. That would have RMV marking in it. Probably it might not have some of the provisions we've discussed tonight in it, but it is a council testimony at this point written. And so there is an element of trust too. And I will just admit that you are trusting me to craft this based on the comments in a way I believe the council does support wholeheartedly. Any other comments before we move to a vote? Seeing none, the motion on the floor is to authorize the president to sign and submit testimony on behalf of the council to the Joint Committee on Ways and Means regarding the governor's FY27 budget. I will say one thing at this point, I am not signed up to verbally testify. I'm only planning to submit written testimony on behalf of the council. Anyone else is welcome to sign up for verbal testimony, but I've got some conflicts, so I can't sit around for hours waiting to testify on that day. So it will be a letter and a letter only at this point. We start with Councillor Lord. Sam McLeod,
Abstain.
Pam Rooney,
Yes.
Counselor Ryan,
Aye.
Kathy Shane,
Yes.
Jennifer Taub,
Yes.
Counselor Walker,
Yes.
Counselor Brevik,
Yes.
Counselor Kendall Martin,
Yes.
Andy Churchill,
Yes.
Anna Devlin Gauthier,
Aye.
Lynn Griesemer,
Aye.
and Mandy Johanicky is an aye. That passes 12-0 with one abstention. We already did appointments. And so we are up to committee and liaison reports. I'm going to try a different way of doing this tonight. We're going to start with, does any council committee chair of the 4 council committees beyond what was submitted in their written reports have any additional information to state tonight or to report tonight? Anna.
I sent an email to the council requesting questions for and any input on selection guidance. I have yet to receive any, so I'm just reminding, my new information is that I'm reminding the council that if you have any questions that you would like GOL to consider or selection guidance that you would like GOL to consider as we create both of those things for the bylaw review committee, please email me those tomorrow. Even if they are vague thoughts, this is, I think, the one time that I will say you don't need perfect wording because we're going to be muddling through it together as a committee. But please send those to me by tomorrow, ideally at noon, so that I can compile them and get them to the committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Pam.
Thank you. CRC, exactly the same point, except that I included the interview questions from last year. And I would appreciate if anyone has any feedback on it. Great. We will be talking about it on Thursday. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Ryan.
Just a quick note, TSO has not met since the last council meeting, and that is why there is no TSO report in the packet. And we meet next on April 2nd.
Thank you. Any questions for any of our council committee chairs? I'm assuming Counselor Ryan's hand is left up from reporting on TSO. Seeing none, we're going to move to counselors who sit on non-council committees. Do they have anything to report? So these are the building committees, the transportation, parking. We will get to liaisons after this. So I'm doing it in 3 groups. Pam.
This is DPW Building Committee, and we are refining a request for qualifications for the owner's project manager. It is a first step in moving forward. We have to have an owner's project manager before we can hire a designer. The next meeting will be April 8 at 2 p.m. at Town Hall.
Thank you. Kathy.
I'll report on 2 committees. JCPC meets on Wednesday, and we have a draft final report from, as I think everyone knows, where we make recommend to the town manager. And just one comment you'll see in the report that Sean Magnano, our finance director, has been fabulous, including finding more than 3-year-old projects, some of which still had money in them, and closing them down to increase. So we found increased money for roads, which was great. So you'll see the full report at the next council meeting. The elementary school building committee met and will be meeting again on April 17th, but there is another site visit on April 28th to the school. It is on schedule to open in September right now, but if anyone who's not been on it, they should let me know, and I can let people know on the site visit. There are some issues that have come up that we will be resolving at the next committee, but basically we get reports on how well the construction is going.
Thank you.
Which is good. The building is rising in pieces. And so people want to see recent pictures. They're in our packets.
Thank you. Counselor Ryan.
Again, with transportation and parking, that commission is still working to arrange for its first meeting. Paul can correct me, but I believe that has tentatively been set for April 15.
Okay. Lynn?
This goes back to Kathy. Is the tour going to be open to counselors like the last one?
Right now, the main issue is keeping the group size manageable, but we haven't been saying no to people. So, and I know Paul, at one point, I don't know whether I missed one tour, I wasn't in the country. You talked about Mindy and Joe might want to go on a tour. The school committee actually came out in force at one point. So right now, I don't think there's any restriction, Lynn, on how many people. The access has become much easier because there's a road driveway, there's a place to park. So we just need a head count.
And what time?
3:30, I'll confirm that. Paul, does that sound right? Yeah, because it tries to do it after school.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for counselors who serve on non-council committees? Seeing none. Liaison reports. Any liaisons? Counselor Lord.
Thank you. I just wanted to quickly say that the CSSJC is always working hard, helping GOL, or sending GOL their resident oversight board recommendations, working on ICE updates and sanctuary city, just trying to keep our residents safe. And they have a retreat on April 4th. And I look forward to reporting back after that. Thank you.
Anna.
I just wanted to respond to Councillor Lord that I did receive the letter from the co-chairs of the CSSJC. It will be in the packet when GOL discusses the ROB, which is not at this coming meeting, but likely the meeting after. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for liaisons? Sam.
No question, but just a quick update. I went to the first public shade tree meeting on the 10th, and they're excited about the Sustainability Festival as Anna referenced in her proclamation, on April 25th. They're going to have a booth there with some fun games and giveaways of small trees for the first folks. And they have their first public planting on April 11th. And they're always looking for volunteers. And down the road, they expressed an interest in planting a 250th anniversary tree for the country in the town, and we'll see what happens there. Thanks.
Thank you. Jennifer.
Yes, I have an announcement of an event coming up this week from the Council on Aging, also co-sponsored with the BID, Amherst Neighbors, and the Friends of the Amherst Senior Center. It is Senior Sips this Thursday, March 26th from 4 to 6 p.m. at Protocol. So I get to go as the liaison, and I'm part of that demographic.
Enjoy.
Thank you.
Thank you for the
I will.
announcement. Seeing no other hands for committee and liaison reports, we will move on. Paul, town manager report.
Thank you. It's just a note. It's a cash bar, Jennifer, just so you know. So in terms of the tour, there are a certain number of people that I think they have like 12 helmets, and it's a small group of the tour of the elementary school. It's a really interesting tour. If you can go, it's good to go. If you're going to sign up to go, please make sure you go, because there sometimes are people who would like to go. There's people who've gone every time that we can encourage them to step back for a tour. But I encourage you, if you have a chance. It is a construction site. It's unsteady terrain. When you're walking on it, you need to navigate stairs that are basically sort of, you're holding on to wooden railings and things like that, not completely finished, but they do have some rooms that are mocked up that that you can see the colors and everything. It's a pretty impressive building. So we'll share that out with you. I mean, certainly with the senator and the rep, they were not able to make it last time. So we always have an open door for them to show up as well. Just a note that I think you are aware, so our senior services director was forced by herself to step down, unfortunately. And so Kiko Malin, who had served as the previous temporary director of senior services in that role, we're actively seeking a new director. So we're prioritizing that. I shared with you a presentation that Chief Ting and his staff put together on Saturday at Applewood. That's Councilor Devin Gothier was there, and there's about 50 people there. It was really very well attended, really robust discussion afterwards. I thought the presentation was really well done. We have shared that. We've posted it on our website. Please feel free to share. Feel free to share. It tries to outline the different levels of government, what their responsibilities are, and how the town's posture, led by the council's resolution, has tried to communicate to our staff mostly about how we will interact if federal agents come into town. So I think it's probably one of the more robust executive statements, along with Somerville and Boston. There are very few other communities have taken this step, so I'm really proud of it. The Cable TV Advisory Committee has had its first meeting. They're having their second meeting on Friday. They elected Brianna Sunrid as the chair of the committee, and its goal is to renegotiate a new contract with Comcast for cable television services. That has to be done by October, and our town attorney is going to guide us through the process, and we're in good shape on that. And then also, the council I know there's a lot of interest in what's going to happen with Wildwood School. And I share some information about the process that we would follow. And it's been instructive because we're fortunate to have Jeff Bagg as our Director of Economic Development and Planning. And he was involved in a similar project in East Hampton, but that was pretty different. As a consultant, he was involved in another project that's very similar to ours in Yarmouth. And that's really the model that we'll be following. So he sort of outlined a process that we'd like to follow. And as I shared that in pretty good detail in the town manager report. If you have comments or suggestions or anything like that, I welcome them. So I think that's, and then you have my written report. If there are any questions on that, I'm happy to respond.
Councilor Kendall Martin.
Yeah, just about the last thing you mentioned with Wildwood, I guess my question would be, what is the process for recruiting the 7 to 9 members who are going to be on the committee? Who are they going to be residents? Will it be counselors? And then my other, I guess more just of a note that it feels like having to find those people and then have some kind of final report by June seems like a really quick timeline. So I was just wondering, is that like aspirational or was that meant to be next year, June?
Next year, June. Sorry. Yeah, it just gave me a heart attack there. There's no way. We have not really determined that. We haven't had that conversation about it would be a general call for people who want to serve. I think there's a lot of people. We've already had some people say, I want to be part of it. It'll be a pretty robust, and we want to make sure that all voices are being heard. And so it might not be people who are necessarily on the committee. This is going to be sort of a working group that's going to focus on it. But there's going to be a big process. Ultimately, it'll be wind up in the hands of the town council to make the final decision.
It said with funding, the project can start in July with a projected completion date of June 2027. So are we saying July 2027?
No, if we get funding this year, it's come through the budget process now, we can start in July 1, 2026. It'll take about a year to do the process.
To do the planning process?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I thought you meant like a project would be completed by.
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Brevik.
Yeah, I just had a follow-up question on the ICE piece of your report. I was happy to see that you shared also the data point in there that the state did put up the portal for reporting ICE misconduct. And I was wondering if there's a way that the town can, sorry, my brain is moving slow at this hour, that the town can promote that either through the police department, through social media, on their website, or if there's some way that we can, as a town, support that really important step forward.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. We hadn't thought about that when we were posting things today, but we can add that to the postings. We posted the presentation in multiple locations and on our DEI page, police page, we did on the town bulletin board as well. So that's a good thing to add because I think that's not getting enough airplay actually. So.
Kathy.
Just so people know, part of the funding is is one of the things we're looking at JCPC with the recommendation to fund this as a capital project, the Wildwood. But the process that we have laid out on deciding whether a property is surplus or not, whether we're going to go out, whether we're going to reuse it, needs to be combined in some way. And I know Jeff has been through two different places that have done this, and they went through first initially with committees to come up with what the options were. And once they decided what the best option was, then they went out with help of state money to get good RFPs for it, so that there was an initial, the what, and then there was additional. So I just want to say that a year will probably, hopefully get to us to the what. But so I just, making sure he has, and I know you have it, but all the work that was done on Wildwood in terms of infrastructure for the school, I have every report that the design team did on, what's the current stuff. So I had a related question to other projects that we have on town property. So the old school in South Amherst, when will we be moving to a decision one way or the other? Whatever happened when we gave the old school across from Fort River and became part of the Wayfire? What happened to that project? Where is it? So it's like, there was a statement in Shutesbury of not wanting to mothball their old building, but start thinking as soon as possible. So those are two examples of we've mothballed them in a way. So I just don't know where those are.
Yeah, I can update you on those. So first off, on the Wildwood, I think that we're going to need the time to really look at it. We're well aware of the surplus property disposition policy that has to be incorporated into it. And so and Jeff has taken that into consideration as he's developed his plan. So we're really fortunate to have him who's with this experience. Otherwise, we probably would have had to hire a consultant for this. For the East Street School, which is the one across from Fort River, that was vacant for many, many years. It was used as classroom space for a time for the Fort River School, and then it was used for storage. But now we have, dedicated it to affordable housing for those two projects on Belchertown Road and on East Street. Those projects are trying to get funding from the state, and they're ready to go. They're fully permitted. The town has done everything it needs to do in order for those projects to move forward. Now it's an economic decision by wayfinders to move them forward. They need to get substantial funding from the state. They're perfect properties for the state to support. It's near a school, it's family housing, all those things. It's really a good project. The South Amherst School, we did the study or did a community participation process with the about housing, because that's where the money came from for that site. And so I can check exactly where that is, but it's sort of I need to get an update on exactly where that's going right now. I can update that for next time.
And so on the Wayfarers, we just continue to wait. I mean, Mandy, do you remember that very first year you wanted to know whether we should give the property away or not, or should we do something with it? So it's 8 years since we moved that into this project. So it's just, we just keep waiting.
Well,
Yeah. I'm not asking it in an accusatory way, but we bought a piece of property so we could also build housing on it. And it's just that the time frame seems to be long.
The timeframes are enormously long when you're trying to build affordable housing. There's a lot of people trying to build affordable housing in the state, and there's not enough state funds to support it. And also, it's become so expensive to build. It's like everything else. It's become so expensive to build one unit of affordable housing. That's capital A affordable, which is what we really try to get to, because that means it'll be affordable forever. You saw what happened with community homes up in North Amherst. That has taken a very, very long time, and that took an enormous amount of investment by the state. It was a priority of the state because of its home ownership opportunity. So this one, we advocate for it at the state. They failed the last funding round. They did not succeed. And so you basically have to wait a year, and that's why it takes so long.
Thank you. Councilor Ryan.
Paul, a bit ago, there was in the works a report that we brought to the council on the rollout of the rental registration program and how that's going. And I'm just wondering where that's at the moment.
Yeah, we've talked about this agenda setting. Rob Morris said he would have that ready by April 15th.
Okay,
It's tentatively scheduled on the April 27th agenda.
April 27th. Okay. Yeah, good.
Thank you. Next is the town council items of reporting. So the president's report, if there are any questions, please ask me. I wanted to highlight two things in the report. The first is I tried to summarize the meeting with the chancellor that the vice president and I and town manager and assistant town manager had about a week ago, I guess now it was. So don't miss that in the report. If you're curious, ask me questions if you have any questions about that. And there's also indication about our town council budget and how more than just the MMA Connect 351 meetings and travel expenses may be reimbursable. So read that section too if you are thinking about attending events as a counselor to, in particular, further your knowledge of council matters. MMA events, MMCA, WEMO events in particular, you may be able to get reimbursement. If you have questions, ask Athena or ask myself. The big part of that is that if you want it reimbursed, you should talk to us before you incur the expense to see if it will be approved for reimbursement, partially because there may not be money for it, and we do not know, this goes to June 30. We do not know what the budget will be starting July 1. But I wanted to highlight that because I know, as I said in the report, Counselor Walker and I didn't, when we went to the budget meeting for next year's budget, there were all these lines and we're like, what are they for? They're like, oh, if you incur this or this. And we're like, oh, we didn't know that. So we figured the other counselors didn't know either. Those are my highlights of the report. Are there any questions on the report? If not, I'll move on to next agenda items. Seeing none, April 6th has the CPA public forum. I suspect that will take a decent amount of time. Right now, also on that agenda, tentatively, is University Drive easement. We think it will finally be ready. It's been the next agenda for like the last month and a half. Potentially the regional school budget, we haven't had a conversation as to whether we're going to propose splitting it out from the main budget motions or not. So we'll be having that conversation and agenda setting, I think, March 31st. I think is the week we'll have that one. And I've asked the chair of finance to be at that meeting. We'll continue if we have time beyond the charter referrals. And yeah, at this point, that's sort of what's tentatively planned. So it's a very light agenda, as I said, on April 27th, a presentation on rental registration per the vote we did earlier this year, and potentially referral of clean energy bylaw and associated zoning bylaw revisions for hearing, and CPA voting, because at that point we will hopefully, if finance has made its recommendation on April 7th. And then there is also the special meeting scheduled for next Monday. The agenda is still planned for what I put out, a special public comment period to hear from DPW employees, a general public comment period, a presentation and discussion item to explore possible solutions that are within the purview of the council to enact, a committee report from the DPW building committee. So that's Pam. If you have questions about what we thought about that, I'll be in touch with you. Executive session is currently what's planned for that agenda. Any questions on future agenda items? Seeing none, any counselor comments? Lynn?
Mindy Jo, I'd like to thank you and compliment you on guiding us through all of that tedium, excuse me for saying that, of the charter committee report and getting us to this point. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Seeing no other counselor comments. There's nothing unanticipated, so I move to adjourn at 10:08. I heard Pam Rooney already second that. We will vote. We start with Sam,
Aye.
Pam,
Yes.
Counselor Ryan,
Aye.
Kathy Shane,
Yes.
Jennifer Taub,
Yes.
Counselor Walker,
Yes.
Counselor Brevik,
Yes.
Counselor Kendall Martin,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Anna,
Yes.
Lynn,
Aye.
Mandy's and I, Counselor Lord. That is unanimous. We are adjourned at 10:08 PM.